indicated by Dr. Carter. I am Commissioner Ntuli. I am chairing this panel. I'm joined by Dr. Carter on my right, and on my left, Dr. Phobos. Together we constitute the panel. Before we begin, may I just confirm whether you have any objections to taking the oath this morning? No. Okay, thank you very much, sir. I will request that when you speak to the microphone for the purposes of the record. Having indicated no objections, may I kindly ask you to rise, state your full name, surname, the institution you represent, as well as the position you occupy.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Sabelo Mavundla. I am the Deputy Business Unit Leader at the Auditor General, and I'm here for the Commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mavundla. Having indicated no objections to taking the oath, do you swear that the evidence you shall give this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and state, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You may be seated, Mr. Mavundla. Is Mavundla Zulu or Xhosa Mavundla?
Confused. No, Zulu.
Zulu
Mavundla, yes.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Mr. Mavundla. You are most welcome.
Thank
You
you.
will then have about 20 minutes to offer us your presentation, and thereafter, we will engage with you as a panel.
Okay.
Over to you, Mr. Mavundla.
Thank you, Chairperson. Once again, good afternoon. I believe you should have the electronic handout into the poor infrastructure. I think overall, in terms of just the overview, we're looking at our constitutional mandate. We audit the annual financial statements, and then we also perform 2 additional audits that relating to performance information and also compliance audits. And as you may be aware, we'll also put some information relating to material irregularities. Just as a background, within the province, there are 3 government organizations that are in control or responsible for the road network. SANRAL for the national roads, Eastern Cape Department of Transport, and then local government. In my presentation, our responsibility covers the Department of Transport and all the individual municipalities, so we're going to cover that in detail. All right, so I will just go through the questions and my responses. For the first question relating to the assessment of financial management practice within the government entities in the past 3 years or so. With Department of Transport, we've had a stagnation in audit outcomes, which means that there has been a repeat of the same audit outcomes under fruitless and wasteful expenditure. This is mainly due to the scholar transport, but there are some contractor and roads issues within that, which I'll get into detail. So they're still currently a qualified audit, and they've been qualified since 2018-19 related to this similar issue. With regards to what makes up the fruitless and wasteful, we noted that there's 29 million overpayments to suppliers. That's for the scholar transport, and that also relates to prior year. We also noted 1.2 million overpayments of fees to the consultant that was appointed to design and supervise a certain project for roads construction. There was a estimated understatement of 33 million in relation to overpayment on measurement of inputs materials to a constructor. I will go into detail on that project and what we found. There was also an additional understatement, so an overpayment of 11.9 million. The contractor was unable to implement the project with due diligence, and of course this means that their records are understated. We also noted a 500,000 understatement occurred due to non-provision of construction work. So as much as the fruitless and wasteful has the majority, 29 million, we did also find additional understatements within fruitless and wasteful relating to paying and not receiving goods. The department also then corrected irregular expenditure that was related to the National Lands and Transport Act, and that was 215 million, and that is related to the Algoa Bus Company contract, which has been renewed annually without going through a procurement process. Overall, the key financial management controls lacking in the department are the lack of adequate controls to track payments to scholar transport, a lack of a credible digital system. We also noted that there was lack of oversight and monitoring controls over the reporting of performance information. So this seems to be only gathered at year end. Ultimately, in terms of the roads constructions and the roads work, there's a lack of appropriate contract and project management. So the work on the ground is not verified appropriately. We have over-reliance on consultants, and then a lack of monitoring of mechanisms to track non-compliance with key legislation. As indicated, the fruitless and wasteful goes back to 2018-19. Whilst there has been progress on trying to resolve this element, we're still identifying issues and weaknesses. There is a commitment to implement a digital system. However, our concern with that is that as much as you can implement a digital system, it relies on the input, and if the input is not correct, it will still go out. As part of our extended mandate, we identified 6 material irregularities. So this is where we've identified there's a loss, and within that loss or non-compliance, we specifically for certain circumstances. In this case, we identified 3 MIs related to overpayment of construction workers or services. So this is mainly specifically to your roads, where we indicated overpayments of 33 million and 1.2 to the consultant. We identified 1 MI related to payment of a fire truck that was never received. 1 MI related to a theft of a construction grader, so not keeping the assets safe, and 1 MI related to overpayment of scholar transport fees. So with regards to these, we did provide details. With the overpayment to scholar transport, we're looking at the recommendations. We expect the investigation was instituted on 16th of February, so in the new financial year, we're going to follow up on the outcomes and if disciplinary processes were done. If not, then we go into the second step of our MI process, which is either a recommendation or an investigation by a public body. With the various overpayments of contractors, we noted that the department did not have adequate internal procedures and controls. This led to the department paying for work that was not performed. We noted a material financial loss on one of these elements of 13 million. We noted also that the accounting officer canceled the contract on the 21st of March. In addition, the department withheld additional payment certificates of 7.9. The contractor lodged a legal claim, and the department also instituted one, and it's currently through the court process. This one has been around for a while, theft of a construction grader. We identified that there was a grader that was left on the premises of a community member in Queenstown in July 2019. When they got back the next Monday, it was gone. And what had resulted was that an investigation, the HOD did implement disciplinary processes. However, they have not been able to retrieve the grader because it is across the border in the country in terms of MFMA. We also then saw improvements to unqualified from KSD Ndlambe, Ngusho, and Dr. A.B. Kuma by them addressing the material misstatements and also passing all the misstatements. Chris Hani was also another one that improved from a disclaimer to qualified. This was newly appointed CFO who brought stability in the finance position and moving through and resolving the limitations on PPE and ensuring that the council and policies are up to date. The council policies are up to date. At RUSU, we also saw an improvement from a disclaimer to an adverse, but this is a slight improvement as it's still a very undesirable audit outcome, and this is mainly due to a continuous lack of accountability and commitment to address the root causes. With Joe Gabi and Winnie Matekizela Mandela, they maintained their clean audits from the prior year. We noted regressions at 4 municipalities. Elundini regressed to unqualified with findings from clean in the previous years. They had material misstatements in their F, so their internal controls around that were poor, resulting in them having to adjust them after the audit process. Hlonhlo also regressed to a qualified opinion from unqualified in the prior year. Similar situation in the terms of the financial reporting processes were not effective due to ineffective controls over the Fs. Consultants were appointed late, and therefore we also saw that they did not have sufficient time. Tabankulu regressed to a qualified opinion from unqualified, mainly around disagreements on impairment of PPE, so this is where your assets, and due to floods and other indicators of impairment, we noted from an audit perspective that these should have been decreased. And of course, they did not adequately monitor the consultants appointed to address these matters. PSG also regressed from an unqualified to a qualified. This is due to no internal controls at all levels, and key management positions have not been permanently filled, that with the instability. We are also concerned about Makana, as they received a disclaimer of opinion for the 4th consecutive year, which means that their records are not auditable. We also noted that there was instability within the finance department. The CFO resigned in December, and the new CFO was only appointed in June 2022. We also noted that the finance budget, the budget and SCM manager also resigned. And in terms of just going through the material irregularities in local government, a total of 42 MIs were identified with a total financial loss of 251 million. 4 MIs related to substantial harm, and 3 were resolved in the prior year. Of those 42, 6 were related to roads or roads infrastructure, mainly on late payments or payments for services not received. We noted that accounting officers did take appropriate action once we raised these. Our biggest concern, of course, is that we shouldn't even be at that stage to be raising them. Related to findings or concerns, the second question related to financial management or road infrastructure projects and recent audit outcomes at DOT, Department of Transport. We audited the main program, the Transport Infrastructure Program. The purpose of this program is to promote accessibility and the safe, affordable movement of people, goods, and services. To our biggest concern is that the department only achieved 41% of its targets while spending 99.8% of its budget. Upon further assessment, we also noted that even in these elements that they said they achieved, they could not provide supporting documentation, so that even brings to doubt that they were able to achieve 48%. We also, during the audit, identified excess payments on contract amounts, and that no due diligence was taken. So we selected the Mlamli Hospital Road, I believe, and we then went into detail in terms of this audit. Here we identified quite a few irregularities. One of them was the overpayment of 34.7 million. This was due mainly to the overmeasurements from the consultant who was also not qualified or appropriately qualified, and we also raised that, where we're saying employer's agent was not competent in terms of GCC 2015. The appointed employee's agent did not qualify to act as an agent, as he was not a registered professional engineer. So it's not just that they're paying overpayment, the consultant was using an unqualified individual. That resulted in them paying more and also paying their consultants over and above what they should have paid. So mainly, we all call this the poor contract management. So the monitoring of what's happening on site, we're not getting proper feedback, and when we do pay, we don't check what we're paying for. Worse, on top of this, once we found the contractor abandoned the site, despite the consistent failure to implement the project with due diligence, the contractor has not yet been terminated. So the contractor ran away, and we still haven't gotten rid of the contractor at this date of the audit for this project. So there was no progress. When we went to visit, it was just standing, nothing being done there. And of course, at this stage, they had already paid the professional fees of 1.2 million, and they had not received any value. We also noted that there could be an additional 11.9 million. This was, of course, disputed by the department. However, we have then indicated that evidence needs to be provided of the value received for this. The quality test timesheets, the quality test sheets were not signed, reviewed, and not accepted by the department. And there was no indication on the sheets of what was being tested for. So in terms of the project that we looked at, there was clear poor project management, poor contract management, consultants also working willy-nilly, as it were, and then not implementing the tenets of the GCC, which require you to terminate and taking time. In addition to these findings, the province, of course, has a huge backlog on budget, and we've noted that there were severe floods in the past 2 years. So one of our audits was then to look at what work are we doing on the damaged roads, so from the flood damages. We noted that in the province, 1,143 municipal roads and bridges, 420 provincial roads, and 78 provincial bridges were damaged, including being washed away or collapsed. The department estimated the cost of damages at 2.06 billion. The department worked on 255 roads and 54 bridges. So as we can see, there's still a lot of work that hasn't been done. And in July 2023, 98 roads of those 255 have been completed. Taking into account that the contracting process with the plant hire, which also caused a bit of problems in terms of starting, and there is a risk of payment in advance, as no retention monies are deducted from payment certificates. We noted that there was poor workmanship. We noted there was quality issues in terms of the information provided and the substandard quality control tests. So the same project management issues are popping up. We also noted that site instructions or variation orders were issued verbally and not documenting, and therefore not binding. So when we requested the information for, okay, prove it, it didn't exist. With respect to local government, we noted that 58% of municipalities had material findings on their performance report, and the province achievement rate was 68%. I'm sure of interest to the committee is that PSJ, the worst performing municipality and the hardest hit with the floods and road damages, only achieved 25% of its planned service delivery targets. The municipality did not achieve targets, including the construction of access roads, paving of roads, and maintenance of gravel roads. But the municipality spent 96% of the infrastructure grant. We also noted that there were service delivery protests during the month of October, demanding the removal of the mayor. And the other disclaimed, Makana, the disclaimed municipality, was the second worst performing municipality in the province, only achieving service delivery targets of 30%. One of the things we did note with Makana's service delivery targets was that they did not include all the targets, so they did not have roads elements in there. It was mostly water and sanitation. The common root causes within the municipalities is that the financial difficulty plans not being supported by budget or using money that's meant for something else, poor project management, and the heavy rains have also caused issues. We noted also delays in procurement processes, and the moratorium did not assist. We also noted during the flood relief audit and local government, where 109 million was allocated through a disaster relief grant for 27 projects. Only 70% had been spent by 31 May 2023. And it should be noted by the committee, this grant is expected to be used up in 6 months. So the fact that we've gone a year and a bit from the time is the most concerning. And most municipalities, 6 of the 8, used the funds to repair and replace road infrastructure. We noted that Oatamba Nyandeni used it to rectify treatment plants and rebuild the bridge. Once again, PSJ was the worst performer so far, having only spent 55% of the funds and are in risk of these funds being taken away. Clearly, there are functional problems within the municipality. Some of the common factors that we do see is that at the end of the day, there is no personal accountability in terms of making sure that we put in preventative controls and ensuring that we achieve our mandate. It is clear that there's a lack of consequence management for transgressions of legislation. There's a lack of implementation of key controls and a credible system. We saw also at Department of Transport the appointment of non-viable construction companies who then turn around and leave site or don't finish the job. And ultimately with infrastructure, the key element was that there's poor project and contract management and oversight on significant key maintenance and capital projects. We feel that, of course, these are systematic issues and it's not such an easy solution. However, we have identified that effective oversight by leadership is needed. Administrative leadership needs to hold officials accountable for effective action plans and ensure that adequate implementation of controls are implemented, especially also with compliance with legislation. We need to implement basic controls to improve the control environment from a financial management process, and then of course we need to go back to the basics, as it were. Look at the individual for the basic services. The last question, how do we communicate with stakeholders and decision makers to make sure that they understand? One of the key things that we've shifted on our culture is that we want to influence the culture to better. So we aim at intensifying influence and collaborating with all role players in the accountability ecosystem. We've established the ecosystem and going around and training the individuals within this. We focus more on the lived reality of our people, and we aim also for government to start thinking about that in terms of all of our reports. We have committed to present our communications to and with stakeholders in a manner that is human-centric rather than more technical. the introduction of the accountability ecosystem to report the performance on all the accountability ecosystem role players. We advocate for and build broad stakeholder focus and provide stakeholders with a more real-time view of public sector and accountability. And of course, this then means we have to have plans of that. We've got 3 plans: the Insight Plan, the Recommendation Plan, and the Culture Shift Plan. Just to take you through some of our engagements recently, we've of course met with administrative leadership. Stakeholder engagement is one of the key methods that we get our audit reports around. Our strategic aspiration rests in large part on stakeholders not only hearing our message, but moving. We identify the key stakeholders that can make an impact on improvement of the financial and performance management, and we want to work closely with these. We look at leadership's focus and also what is keeping them up at night. During these meetings, our focus must be placed on moving away from seeing the audit purely from a financial standpoint, but looking at performance management, setting targets, and making sure that we go back to the individual. We've also engaged Scopa during August and September, where we briefed them on the outcomes and the issues that they need to look out for in terms of oversight. We also meet then with portfolio committees as part of their oversight and accountability. This happens, and we also meet with chair of chairs, where we'll brief them individually on outcomes, PDO, and Troika. Our key messages: there are 4 key messages that we've shared in the past 12 months. The key role players in the accountability ecosystem: who are they and how must they all play their part in ensuring accountability and providing assurance to legislature that the information contained within the reports are accurate. Instill a greater sense of urgency when it comes to improving the audit outcomes for the 3 big departments that have qualified. That is education, health, and transport, of course. Oversight as well as portfolio committees should play their role in adequate consequence management of transgressions. There needs to be investigations into unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful, and this should be prioritized and finalized with urgency. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mavundla, for your presentation. Quite worrying, to say the least, especially in light of the evidence we have had throughout the whole week, especially from key role players in the public service, which is a complaint about funds. But what we are saying is that the funds are there, but they are being misused. So thank you very much for that. I will hand over to Dr. Fobosi, and thereafter Dr. Carter.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you, Mr. Mavundla. Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Well asked. Thank you, sir. This is worrying. It's worrying because it paints the picture that there's poor management of funds, which is a problem. You mentioned that there is fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which dates back to 2018-19 financial year. So I'm interested to know, in terms of what you have done with this information, because I think from the previous research, one of the things that has caused that is because of mostly lack of capacity in the departments, poor management skills. Has there been some form of training provided to the department? And also, you mentioned that there's been overpayment of scholar transport operators. This is a problem for me because there's some operators who have been complaining that there's delays in their payments, which I think is somehow problematic as well. So, and also the same question, what has the Auditor General done with that? So therefore it appears to me that the department does not follow the Treasury regulations, which is a big problem. For example, with the overpayment of a contractor. I mean, 13.1 million is a lot of money. It's our tax money which could have been used for something else. So this is problematic. What are some of the measures that are taken by the Auditor General to make sure that this problem is addressed? And also you mentioned that the 41% was achieved, and with a lot of spending of 99.8%. And even so, you explained further to say that the targets could not be trusted. You know, it appears that some of the things were not done. Can we then conclude that the department, misused the money that was allocated to say, look, we're going to do something, and then they did not do it. They instead used the money for something else, which is a problem. What does the Auditor General do in that regard? And lastly, would you then associate the underperformance with poor planning and lack of capacity? Would you conclude that this underperformance is a result of those two things? Thank you, Commissioner.
Over to you, Molase, and after Dr. Kata.
Thank you. Okay, so definitely, I think one of the key elements in terms of the poor management of funds and the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, it does go back years. So one of the things that we do, of course, is to provide this information to your oversight, so your portfolio committees, your scope. However, there has been a lot of noise around the AG saying that you keep telling us about irregular expenditure, you keep telling us about fruitless and wasteful expenditure, when is it going to change? And this is where then our additional powers come in terms of the material irregularities. So this kicks in when management hasn't done what they meant to, so the accounting officer. So with all of this fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we have initiated or invoked our additional powers, which then requires the accounting officer to investigate. So to investigate, then we monitor if there are consequence management processes against that. And if not, at this stage, there has been investigations and there have been commitments provided by management. And then in the next cycle, we confirm if all of that has been wrapped up. If not, then that's where we go into our second phase of the process. So one of the critical things is that clearly at this moment from our implementing of the MI is that our leadership and our leadership processes hasn't developed to that level where these things should be dealt with within the PFMA framework and get out. They need us to notify them, and then that's where we see action. And I think one of the things was we've seen 55% of accounting officers respond and take action subsequently of us raising these. So there's still that need of leadership to set the tone and be direct. And this relates both to overpayment of scholar transport. There's been a commitment to include the electronic software and to make sure that all kilometers are tracked and everything. There are problems within the scholar transport, and one of the things that happened in this past year was that transport got an overdraft to facilitate then the payment of the scholar transport. But we're saying that that's all well and good, but you're overpaying by 20 million. So you really didn't need to do that if you had your processes in place. And so there is that balanced scale. So from our side, where we see wastage, we raise our MI and then we follow it in depth to the end. We do, though, try to maintain our independence. So that's a critical thing. However, we do offer status of records review, where we come in and we can go through interim financials, we can go through adjustments prior to the year end for us to say you're going in the right track or you're going in the wrong track. And of course now the critical thing is not just sending out recommendations, but getting the commitments from all stakeholders and then tracking the commitments and pointing out where you commit to say you're going to do this and then next year you haven't done anything. So that's been key. With regards to the performance, I'm an accountant, so I don't like to conclude without sufficient evidence. So I think there may be a few things that lead to this underperformance. We've noted that the budgeting process, so even when we budget for some of our activities, we under budget, or the market comes in and they know that, okay, I'm working with government, I'm going to have excess contracts or fees in contracts. And then you're not monitoring them. And so that's where you see the variation orders, that's where you see payments for standing time, that's where you see that, okay, there's no due diligence. So the contractor should say in that case, there's no due diligence, I can't start, get it done. But it continued because they know that, okay, we found a rock now, we found this issue, I can claim for that as a variation, it wasn't planned for, I can add a top slice on the contract price. And so we couch that under poor project management and contract management, where those capabilities do not exist within the department, and then if they are or if they're outsourced, they're not monitored appropriately, which is what is currently happening. We outsource that, but then you have a consultant providing poor service and giving you someone who's not qualified to do the job. Thanks.
Before Dr. Kata comes in, just on the back of that question and response, you have approximately 22 months to move between issuing a material irregularity and a certificate of debt. And many of these cases that you have issued the material irregularity for are more than 22 months. Has there been any where you have issued a certificate of debt? And if yes, which ones, and if not, why?
Thank you, Dr. Ntuli. Yes, with regards to the average time frame, yes, that is the average time frame of 22 months. However, we have not issued any certificate of debt in the current province, in this province. We've issued in Northwest, if I recall correctly. The delay on our side was that the submissions provided were adequate. So for instance, if you look at the construction grader, that is longer than 22 months outstanding. That the accounting officer has done everything within his power to get that back. It's done investigation, demoted people, consequence management, reported it, so everything from his side. And one of the things that we then are working on is working with the public investigating.
The reason I raised that is because the innovative element of the amendment to the Act in 2019 was the ability to move from the material irregularity to the certificate of debt, so that you send a message to the accounting officers that if you do not handle public finances in the right way or appropriately, then you're going to pay out of your own pocket. So it will be good if we move towards a situation where we are issuing these out more so that perhaps some kind of change can be seen. Dr. Carter?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll just be quick because I think I'm covered by most. I just wanted to make a comment. Again, we've gone through this week, and the recurring theme is there's not enough funds, not enough funds. And then it is really discouraging to see that when there are funds, that it is either left unspent or spent irregularly. And there's overcharging, and it's really concerning. But I just want to make a comment, just for the record as well, that one of the municipalities that is mostly affected by disasters in this province is Port St. John's. And then in your report here, and I just want to quote because I want to read it into the record, it says, the municipality does not have contingency plan for disasters. And this is, they are the center point for disasters in this province. And we've had people come to us this week who said they were the Kwebeni community. They are left in dire need of development. They have mud structures for homes. They have no way to reach services such as SASSA grants. We had a representative indicating they were disconnected for 3 weeks from reaching the main road due to the disaster, and that they needed to mail the president's office, and that all of that happened within this municipality's jurisdiction. So I'm just reading that so that it can be in the record. And then just, again, echoing, and I think perhaps what my fellow panelists have also said, is that it appears oversight, monitoring, quality control. That's not just what you are saying. SANRAL said that in their presentation an hour back, to say that we are having roads and they're going to have to be regraded and they will have to be resurfaced because the incorrect materials are used, the people are not qualified, and then we have to come in and save the situation. That for me is very concerning. So those are just comments, Commissioner, and just perhaps to confirm, is there any hope when you made these findings against Port St. John's that they might be in a position to have a contingency plan very soon?
Thank you, Dr. Carter. In terms of hope, we are still engaging the function, the disaster management function. We've also highlighted this with COCTA because they are also supposed to be training and making them aware of their responsibilities. So currently there hasn't been any movement in terms of having a plan in place, but we are addressing the responsibilities, and also we've also moved it up to PDMC, the Provincial Disaster Management Center, to say that this is an area that you've got to look in, and it is a large concern. Thanks.
Maybe just following up from Dr. Carter, this municipality spent 96% of its infrastructure grant, yet achieved 25% of its targets. Were you able to ascertain where the 96% was spent? That's the question.
So we were able to see where it went. The payments did go for infrastructure related, so there was no unauthorized expenditure in terms of that. However, then the question is, are we paying what we should be paying and efficiently? So we did note that there were interest payments, so that means we're paying slowly and not getting everything out. And then of course some of the contract amounts were quite high in terms of what they were meant to be doing. But we don't do an assessment of benchmarking with the market, which is maybe then something we definitely need to look into. Thanks.
Yes, perhaps maybe that should be the next step to be considered, because often you find that items are overpriced outside of the market rates, and because there are no checks and balances to compare what is being quoted against the market, then there is that liberty that contractors often feel they have to continue this practice. So perhaps this is something that should be considered. But thank you so much, Molase, for your time. We appreciate this presentation. It certainly has been quite useful for purposes of the work we are doing. So thank you. We wish you all the best. The time is now 8 minutes before 1 o'clock, and you may be excused. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to the Commissioner.
Dr. Carter.
Commissioner, we will be proceeding with the Department of Transport. And that, it appears, looks like our final presentation for the day.
Good morning, MEC and your delegation. Welcome to all of you. We welcome you to this inquiry. You have the benefit of being our last witness. So even if we finish at 9 p.m., it's fine. It's okay. And either way, your presentation is 81 pages. So, exactly. So it's really up to you. Welcome. I am Commissioner Ntuli, and this is ESCOM. I welcome you. This is Dr. Carter on my right, and this is Dr. Fobosi on my left, and together we constitute the panel for this inquiry. We thank you very much for your time, but more than anything, we thank you for your patience. It has been a long day. I know that you were scheduled to start much earlier, and I also understand that you have been waiting. So thank you very much. I think you will appreciate the importance of this engagement, and that some of the issues take time to deliberate on. We have seen quite a number of witnesses, very key stakeholders in this debate, including Treasury, including Sanral, including the Auditor General, and you will understand that they are key, very key stakeholders when it comes to the issue of roads infrastructure. But of course, yours is the center of the debate. You are the very key stakeholder, so we are very pleased that you are here. Before we begin, I would just like to find out if your full name, surname, the institution that you represent, as well as the position that you occupy for the record, please.
My name is Claude Lengata. I'm the MEC for the Department of Transport and Community Safety.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanem Vula Heavens Ngovela, the Acting Deputy Director General Transport Infrastructure from Department of Transport in the province.
Afternoon, Commission. I'm Maud Matumane, Acting Accounting Officer for Department of Transport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. MEC, HOD, as well as Acting DDG. Having indicated no objections to taking the oath, do you swear that the evidence you shall give this afternoon will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and individually to the record state, "So help me God."
So help me God.
So help me God.
So help him God.
Thank you so much. You may be seated. MEC and your team, then we will offer you about 30 minutes to offer us your presentation. But I see, telling from these pages, you might want a bit of a longer time. We don't want to compromise the quality of your presentation, but we also want us to mind the time. And thereafter, the panel will engage with yourself. Over to you.
At this point, I think that I will thanks once again to the Commission for affording us the opportunity. I will hand over to DDG Ngovela to do the presentation, but I would want to make one or two remarks that we also hope that this opportunity will highlight the position we are as the Eastern Cape as it relates to road infrastructure. Being a province whose 90% of the roads are gravel roads and 10% only are tar roads. And the reality of climate change, being a disaster-prone province, the reality of a budget that is not needs-driven, a reality of a budget that does not take into account that we're putting together homelands here, and therefore we're starting not from a fair basis, and therefore budget allocation has never taken that into consideration. So that's the context that we're working on. With a backlog, with no, any prior arrangement to address those things. A province which is a labor-sending province, and therefore the issue of population or the budget formula being used based on the population is not in our favor due to outward migration. When they do census, many of our citizens are not here in Joburg or in Cape Town. And therefore the issue of budget formula, which determines the allocation per province, puts us at a disadvantage. So I thought that is quite important. It's an issue that we have raised time and again, that there is a need to review the budget formula to respond to the backlog that we find ourselves. And if you do a road this week, a gravel road this week, it rains next week, it's as if it has not been done. Is there value for money? We're quite convinced there is no value for money. There's got to be a rethink in terms of how we're attending to the issue of road infrastructure in the province. I just thought, let me just highlight that, thinking that if then it's coming from the side of the Commission, it can come from a more objective standpoint than from ourselves as directly affected parties and so on. DDG, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Greetings to the commissioners, through your chair, and the Honorable MEC, HOD, and colleagues. The first page, which is page 2, is just the table of contents. With your permission, I would like to skip that. The purpose of the presentation is to appraise the Commission on how roads in the province are constructed, maintained, including associated challenges. The preservation will be limited to provincial proclaimed routes in line with the department's legislative mandate. We are, Chairperson, aware of what is expected of us because they were leading questions, but we felt like the background that the Honorable MEC has said must also be stated on and be on record. The next page is the expectation. The presentation is expected to in some way empower the members of the Commission on how roads are classified, maintained, and the challenges associated thereof. This will also give an idea as to why some of the roads maintenance challenges cannot be resolved and influence the decision makers to ponder on various ways to fund roads maintenance into the future. The next page, Honorable Chair, is the mandate. I'm not at the vision yet. The mandate, there are a number of legislation that governs the department. I will not read all of them, but on top of those that we've listed, we've got other legislations that we are also using. The next page is the vision and mission and values. The vision, we want to have an efficient, safe, affordable, and accessible transport system. The mission is to provide, facilitate, develop, regulate, and enhance safe, affordable, reliable, multimodal transport systems, which is integrated with land users to ensure improving levels of accessibility, optimal mobility of the people and goods in support of the socio-economic growth and development in the province of the Eastern Cape. Values is the commitment, is the accountability, teamwork, and good governance. The next slide, it's talking to exactly what the MEC has spoken to, just the point of departure, that the situation in the province finds itself these days can be traced back to pre-1994, where 2 homelands were amalgamated with the Cape Province administration. Those were Ciskei and Transkei. The 2 homelands were characterized by less investment in terms of roads infrastructure as opposed to the Cape administration. The truth here, Honorable Commission, is that in the homelands, it was characterized by gravel roads with very little on paved roads, whereas on the west of the province, it was more on the paved network or surface network. We therefore believe that we missed an opportunity to start with trying to level playing fields, deciding where to invest first and limit investment simultaneously. One example that I could make here with regard to this statement, with regard to mud schools in the province of the Eastern Cape, there was a decision in the program of eradicating mud schools in the former homelands. We believe that in the case of the roads, it should have happened similar to that particular program. We are now forced to compare East and West, both of which were ever at different levels of development on the eve of the democratic era in 1994. Still continuing, whenever we see henceforth must be seen in the context of this reality that I've just explained. Depreciation and preservation of infrastructure assets is very important and needs to be taken into consideration whenever decisions are made. With regards to the source of funds that we are using to maintain roads, it is called Provincial Road Maintenance Grant, PRMG. There is a requirement there or a condition in that grant that says if the National Treasury is giving us $1 billion, the provincial government ought to at least match that particular requirement, which is not happening in the case of the province. If I were to just make a little bit of an example, Commissioner, in KZN, I think they add 3 times or more to what they are getting from the National Treasury. You will understand that they have got an advantage in the case of KZN in that they have got revenue generation projects like your airport, your toll gates and things like that. So they are able to generate their own revenue, which is different in the case of the Eastern Cape. So we are entirely, for maintenance of our roads, dependent on the grant with 0 from the voted funds or equitable share. The next page is just a picture of the network, transport infrastructure analysis. If you can just move to that page, page 10, yes. The picture on this page, Commissioner, is indicating a network in relation to other road authorities. In the province, we've got 3 road authorities, the municipalities, the national in the form of Central that was here before us, as well as us, the province. But the bulk of the network belongs to the province. 42,000 kilometers is the total network that the province is responsible for. The municipality is also catching up with us in that we are still continuing at the level of municipality of building new roads as a result of new settlements. So they keep on growing. They may be 131 then, but by now it would obviously be more than that. There are challenges as well, and the community do not differentiate between the network of the province as well as the network of the municipality. Hence, when we get opportunities like this, we must also speak on behalf of the municipalities. Because the municipalities have got a grant called Municipal Infrastructure Grant. That grant is meant to provide new infrastructure only, not to maintain. For them to maintain, they're supposed to get revenue from rates and taxes. And the bulk of the municipalities, particularly on the eastern side, they are not revenue-based. They are unable to collect revenue in order to meet that. And as a result, our Honorable MEC keeps on doing some interventions in those municipalities, despite that he is challenged himself in looking after his network. Because overall, he has a responsibility to ensure that the transport infrastructure in the province is looked after. So that is just an indication that the blue one is central, the other color that is yellowish is the province, and the gray one is the municipal one. We have also in the next page, page 11, spoken to the point that the Honorable MEC has stated, that in the entire province, only about 10% of the network is surfaced. The rest is gravel. The one that is so prone to disasters was each time the disasters strike, the material will be washed away. The national average for surfaced roads, it's in the country is about 25%. And we have drawn back the western side of the province as a result of the east in terms of the least development that did not happen on the east side. So it is showing bad. This one now is just showing bad district. The paved road, you can see at the bottom, the blue color there, it's showing the roads that are paved in the different district in our province. The next page is the bridges and major culverts per district. Those that are blue at the bottom, they are bridges. Those that are major, that are yellowish, is the major culverts that are part of our road network. There is data there that there are 1,019 bridges and 1,505 major culverts on the provincial, which is approximately 27% of the structures on the paved roads, which carry the highest traffic. The next is the condition of the Eastern Cape network. I want to state that all this data that I'm reading, Commissioner, is based on a study that was completed in 2017. I'm sure you would have an interest as to why we took so long to update the data, which was as a result of the litigation around the data collection project called Road Asset Management System. And that was resolved only early last year. And we have since appointed a service provider that is busy doing conditional visual assessments on our road. We are hoping that by the time we may probably be meeting next time, we will have a new data. This one is just talking about Honorable Commissioner, to the conditions of the network starting from 1996. In 1996, there was a bit of a blue, if you're looking on the first bar, and the green was meant for good. The blue was meant for very good. The blue was meant for good, fair, and poor. But as we proceed with the years up until 2017, when the study was completed, there was no very good road anymore in the province. This is as a result of what Honorable MEC has touched on, the issue of funding, which we'll very soon get to it as the time goes. And the visual conditional index is just a technical thing that shows the fact that we said on slide number 14, the current NCN for the total flexible tar road network is 48, which means that it is in poor condition. So we are just explaining that for it to be in poor condition, it is between 30 and 50 with this slide number 15. The slide number 16 is similar to the ones that I've just read, but the one I was reading on page 14 is the paved network, the 10% I made reference to. Then the 90% of the network is on page 16, where if you look at it as we speak, that you can only see good in Krisihani and very little good in other districts. as at the time the study was concluded. And the next one, slide 17, it was just showing the conditions of the bridges. And I must state, Commissioner, that the one on 17, it was before these disasters occurred, because they targeted a lot of our structures, bridges. And then we get to in-need requirements. For paved roads, we need what is called the periodic maintenance. As you can see, the yellow, which is very high. The periodic maintenance is the maintenance that must be performed at predetermined intervals. We almost need no routine. A routine is what we are doing day to day. Because of the condition, it requires that you do the periodic, you do the special maintenance. Special maintenance is when something has collapsed within the section of a road. You must just go and intervene. And then rehabilitation, you want to bring the road back to what it used to be before. So that is the picture that this one is showing. But I must read this note on the right. Approximately 2,400 kilometers of the paved network, road network, which is 60%, require some form of maintenance that goes beyond routine maintenance. So you can only do a routine maintenance on the 40%. I just want to put an emphasis, Commissioner, on the 40% the routine maintenance. It's like pothole patching. There are roads which you will patch today. If you come the next week, they have gone back, the pothole has developed, because roads have lived long beyond their lifespan. That is the situation that we are faced with in the province. The next one is still the need analysis as per gravel roads. The bulk of this slide is showing that what is needed in our network is regraveling, putting the layers or layer on top of the road. And the yellow one at the bottom, it's when the road has material on, you simply rip and shape it nicely and compact it again. And then the red one, it's a case where there are roads that are almost unpassable and require almost starting from zero. That's what it means. For us, the next slide is slide 21. Focus areas in terms of asset preservation. When you want to make your own decision, the preservation, the replacement value for surface road is 48 billion. So if you are not preserving them, it means you are losing that 48 billion. That keeps on going down and down. On unpaved road, if we were to replace all our road network, it's going to be 17.2 billion. That's what I want to talk to. Again, all these sources are coming from Road Asset Management System that was finalized in 2017. The next one is showing commissioners the demand for new assets. It's roads that are currently gravel, that by engineering standards, they are supposed to be surfaced. And for a road to be surfaced, it must have a minimum of 250 vehicles per day. So the numbers that you are seeing there, it means vehicles per day. So any road that has 250 vehicles per day warrants surfacing. So the study showed us all those roads that are due. So per district, we said in Alfred Nzo, for example, a total of about 248 kilometers of the road requires to be surfaced. The largest being in OR Tambo at 397 kilometers. The columns, commissioners, that you are seeing there, they are indicating that those roads that have got between 250 and 500 vehicles, the kilometers is 1,300. Between 500 and 750, it's 175. And the kilometers are becoming more and more to those that are highly trafficked, because we also have roads whose vehicles per hour, per day, it's more than 1,500. I will make reference to, because in total at that time, it was 1,610 kilometers of roads that required then surfacing. Now let's look at, while we're still looking at this demand for new asset overview, we looked at backlogs that were estimated as follows. It talks exactly, Chairperson, to what I've made to the slide above. Those that are highly trafficked, they are about 310. And if those you can multiply by an average of 18 million, because a kilometer in the province is about 18 million per kilometer, they will give you 5.7. And those that are low to medium trafficked roads, the backlog is about 23.4 billion. The bridges that are undersized, that still need to be improved, the value then was 1.4 billion. And then the other structural issues, like the small pipes, they costed up to 5 billion. So in total, in 2017, we needed something like 30.5 billion to surface our roads. This is against, Commissioner, the budget, annual budget allocation, which on average, it's around 700 million per year. Now, to upgrade, you don't tap on the PRMG, the Provincial Road Maintenance Grant. You must use funds from within the province. And the province is challenged when it comes to funding. So we always feel grateful for the 700 that we are getting. So we do get money from the province for upgrades, but not for maintenance, because upgrade is moving from one level to a higher level of service. I will talk to the implication of this annual budget and versus when will the backlogs ever be eliminated. We felt that we should also talk, Commissioner, to the pronouncements that were made in up to 2007. The pronouncement of roads, that statement through the policy speech of the MEC or the SOPA, where the political principals indicate to the public that we will do these roads. The total kilometers that was to be done was 1,732. Part of the roads that were pronounced are those that have already made reference that warrant to be surfaced. But there may also be ad hoc ones, because there's a need, for example, to build a road to a hospital. Then you will just have to change your priorities. Until now, based on the funding trends, we have managed to do 373 kilometers, and we are therefore expected, in order for us to eliminate the backlog, to deal with 1,358 kilometers. Out of the 1,358, we've got 589 kilometers that has been designed and shelved because funding is currently not available. And then 799 kilometers needs to be designed out of the promise that we made in 2007. And the charts at the bottom was just showing the order in which we will eliminate these backlogs. We're saying category A, which is in the next page. I've explained categories in the next page. That category A is the project that are currently being implemented in B5. Category B, projects with designs that are completed but never implemented because of the lack of funding. Category C, projects that are currently designed, completed designs. Category D, projects that were implemented and left halfway. So that's the order in which we would wish to deliver on those. And we've decided now to show the allocation per district, that the bulk of the backlogs are in Amatole, followed by OR Tambo and Alfred Nzo. That's the next slide. The implementation plan. If we're to use an average allocation of 700 million or 750 million per year for surfacing roads or upgrading roads, on average we can do 42 kilometers per day, per annum, 42 kilometers per day, at an average cost of 18 million per kilometer. This application limit rate of 18 million per kilometer, this will be realized in 25 years. Now, if you look at this graph now, the bottom graph, it is showing if you were to start in 2020 when we developed this graph, it means that you will only eliminate your backlogs in 2044. That because it shows the individual annual allocation. Unless something drastic changes, then we can deliver earlier than planned. Let's come back now, Commissioner, to the routine maintenance that I mentioned. Like if I were to make routine maintenance in the case of a gravel road, the standards would want us to blade and road 3 times, sending a grader, maybe with water cart and a roller. Ordinarily, you're supposed to do it 3 times per year. To reshape, that means the road still has material on, which is standard says at least 2% of the network you must continuously reshape, and then patch graveling of about 5%. So we will then break this in terms of cost, which will be shown in the next slide, slide number 32. On slide number 32, if we were to re-gravel a road every 10, okay, let me just go back once. So if we were to look at, if we were to use figures next to all these percentage that I've made reference to, for routine maintenance, you need 1.5 billion. And then the next one is periodic. The periodic is re-graveling, it's rehabilitation, it's resealing. So for a gravel road, the standard requires that a gravel road must be re-gravelled between 4 and 10 years. Now we have taken an extreme one that given the situation, if we were to re-gravel our roads every 10 years, what would be the budget implications? The cost per kilometer of re-graveling is 500,000. And if you take 10% of the network, which is 3,750, you would need 1.875 billion. On surface roads, again, we took an average because even there, reseal will be done after 5 years, rehabilitation will be done after 15 years. But if you take an average of a 10-year cycle, you would need 1.9 billion. Now, if you add all these figures, a periodic together with a routine maintenance on an annual basis, you need a budget of 5.2 billion as against the 900 million that we are getting from the grant for maintenance of our paved network. Because a commissioner would want to be an informed client, we also fix roads ourselves. We are not entirely dependent on outsourcing, so that if anything could happen with the private sector, we must still be able to fix roads ourselves. And also, it is easier, Commissioner, to attend to emergencies if you've got your own resources versus going out on tender each time you would want to attend to something. So we had adopted a strategy that says the department must have in-house construction units. And currently in-house construction, that means we are also upgrading at the level of surfacing. We're doing about 5 roads per year on surfacing. On top of that, we felt like that we should also have graveling units that we can use. So we felt that each district, we've got 6 districts, must have a minimum of 2 roving graveling units so that they can attend urgently to issues. We also said we must also revive a center of excellence. We have what is called the Center of Technical Development so that we can professionalize the public sector by training engineers and technicians and technologists to be professionals. So that plays that particular role so that even from within we are informed. That's basically was just talking about strategies that we are using. We are using in-house and as well as outsourced. We have also just added, I'm not going to read this one, these are some of the roads in 2017 that were supposed to be rehabilitated. They have lived long beyond their lifespan, so they had to be attended. So that was the list that was developed in 2017. So with your permission, if I could just skip, because it's too small. I will be repeating, but going quickly on industry norms, that a road should be reconstructed every 25 years, rehabilitated every 15 years, upgraded when the vehicles exceed 200 vehicles per day, road marking every 2 years, reseal on average between 7 and 10 years, regravel between 4 and 10 years. I'm repeating that because I did talk to it while I was presenting. On top of the road, which can be seen by everybody, which is the one that the communities always complain about. They do complain, but not much about this one. But these are the things that we should also be doing: grass cutting, bush clearing, road sign, fencing. And we've also stated the time intervals in which those things must be done. It's a problem, though, when it comes to fencing, because you do it now, tomorrow it's gone. If it's not gone, it has been deliberately cut, because people want to access our roads directly from their households. Current operations, substantial budget is set aside for regraveling every financial year. We target about 700 kilometers of regraveling. And we have been exceeding on that, Honorable Chair, on that one, because of the complaints that we are getting. Each time there's a project that is not moving, when funds are not moving, we tend to direct those funds towards regraveling, because that's what the communities out there are complaining about. We have also rolled out other contracts for buying pipes, for doing wing walls, gabions, and supplying cement. And e-blading, sending a grader to a road, is mostly done using in-house teams. An average of 2 roads are identified for a rehabilitation resealing every financial year. So every financial year, there are roads that we are doing to restore them back to where they used to be. Page 40, the next page 43 is just bridge maintenance requirements. This is really outdated because since the floods have struck the province, the bridge conditions have gone back. They have deteriorated dismally. I can state this one without recording that we have also received, Commissioner, a special funding towards these bridges. As we have seen in national television, social media, people crossing the rivers using containers and things like those. So there's a program called Weli Sizwe. which is implemented through South African National Defence Force. Last year, we've received special funding of about 307 million. And in this current financial year, we've received 190 million just to focus on bridges. It's a modular steel bridges, which have got a limitation in terms of tonnage or weight. So you cannot put it in every road. You must do on the outskirts where heavy vehicles will not be using, because it can collapse if you are using it on a road that is highly trafficked. But we definitely welcome that intervention that national government has made. It's on top of the funding I was talking about, so there was that special funding. The next page is just a picture now of how some of our bridges looked after the disasters. And also a condition of roads selected for a periodic maintenance, reseals have deteriorated further. The point here, Chairperson, in 2017, it was said 30% of the road network has lived long beyond its lifespan. And it was said that if you don't invest on that existing paved network, the entire network will have lived beyond its lifespan by 2027. So we are running against time when it comes to that. And I'm sure the study that will be coming will be showing us a different picture, which is worse than it was then. There is a condition, Commissioner, on that provincial road maintenance grant allocation that says we can only allow you to do a rehabilitation on a percentage that is not more than 25%. And it is very expensive. I made an example that on average, the cost for rehabilitation, reseal for a periodic on paved road is about 5 million. So you are limited on that grant that you get, that you cannot spend more than 25% on the existing. The focus of that grant is more on unpaved network. The above contents will limit permissible construction activity. I upgrade from gravel to surface standards is a point that I indicated that we are depending on voted funds for that one. The focus is due to poor condition of existing network. Increased focus on maintenance will suit refocusing towards in-house activities. That is capacitating towards maintenance and regraveling before moving into high-order paved road construction activity to achieve the 50-50 in the immediate future. The summary of this is that we feel that we should do more on restoring the assets that we have than providing new ones. Increased focus on maintenance aligned to PRMG incentive component, which includes structure, safety, and VCI. Then this is the model that we should be using when we are deciding which roads are we going to be upgrading. It's based on the volumes, traffic volumes on our road. It's based on the type of the project. It's based on the class of the road, strategic importance. Social will count for, which will count for 20%, and the population count. So it's a population, it's a social, infrastructure, strategic importance, class, as well as project type. So this is just illustrating those things. The next pages are just showing that when you talk about the traffic count, it's the vehicles that you are seeing there. When you look at project types, are we reconstructing? Are we rehabilitating? Are we resealing? That's what it means. If we're talking about the class, is it access road, just an access road? Or is it a collector road? Or is it an arterial road? Strategic importance, is it going to social infrastructure? Is it going to economic infrastructure? Is it going to hospital? Is it going to school? That's what it means. Socially, access to amenities like learning facilities, health facilities, etc. And then the population, which the Honorable MEC spoke to as a result of the funding that the funding is also linked to a population, and the majority of the people of the Eastern Cape are migrant workers. They only come during, most of the time, during the holidays. We did apply for special funds whenever there's a window that gets opened for funding. We always go and apply to complement the provincial road maintenance grant. We did get 86 million at one stage under stimulus package, which was since discontinued. On budget facility, the money that I was referring to, the 190 for this current financial year on Welly Sizwe bridges, we got it through EPFI. We also have service level agreement with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR. I'm getting closer to finishing. There were specific questions that we had to respond to on a road leading to Imantlani, Sikisik, Zikudu, commuting to Tavalofe Hospital. They are listed in slide number 57. The access road leading to Mantlani in Lusikisiki, it's called DRS Road 153. It was re-gravel, 7.8 kilometers was re-gravel, and the rest was wet bladed. Wet blading being a grader, water cut, and a roller. The road is very long, hence we can only manage to do so long. Ideally, we would have wanted to re-gravel the entire road, but we couldn't due to resources. The road to Zikudu community in Kofinvaba, part of it is surfaced from the St. Mark side between Kofinvaba and Queenstown. It is going to the place of Chris Hani, but the other half is not. What we've done on the one, so it's still solid, the one which is paved, which is surfaced. But the other one, in-house maintenance has been to blade, and we've tipped a few areas on the road, but the road itself requires serious upgrades. So we would have ideally wanted to continue with the second phase, now that we did the first phase, with the money that we were promised from National by the then Transport Minister, Spoon Debele. But the money was never find its way to the province. So we had to use our own provincial funds to do that because it had already been stated that it's going to be done. We are unable to continue with second phase because of the limitations that I've just explained. Next slide. It's a Tavalofe Hospital from Butterworth, a place called Ibika. I think 2-3 years ago, our premier pronounced that that road must be served. And we as the department, we decided to organize funds for designs. We have designed that route. The designs are complete. However, it is shelved because we don't have funds. In the interim, we have done a regraveling of about 10 kilometers, beginning of October 2023. But 10 kilometers, it's a drop in an ocean because the road is close to 40 kilometers in total. But because we have to be everywhere to ensure that there is access in other areas as well. So that's what we could do. When we take such short sections, we identify areas where communities are unable to pass. The one in Kwachu, the stretch of road is 11 kilometers. We did 8 kilometers there. Let me read. The stretch of is 11, where 8 kilometer project will be implemented by rural development and agrarian reform, and 3 kilometers to be implemented by Department of Transport before the end of this current financial year. So we'll have done and finished the entire one with the funds that we're getting from rural development as well. The next specific road that was mentioned in the inquiry is the Gbala Community Road. There are two roads, 183 and 378. There is a planned maintenance on the road to cut trees, attend to muddy areas, do patch regraveling beginning of December 2023. So there's something that has been planned for that. R61 road between Kala and Ngocha. This road passes through a very important scheme for the province of the Eastern Cape, the agricultural scheme called Ngocha. We did wet blading of about 28 kilometers and 1 kilometer graveling and repair of a 900 diameter pipe culvert in May and June of the current financial year. But there is still a need to do more on that part because it carries trucks that are carrying milk from the scheme to the market. I can also state, Commissioner, that with this road, it was pronounced by Minister Fikile Mbalula that they will be taking it over as the national government. However, it was together with other 4 roads. I think there were 5 in total. The other 4 roads were gazetted and transferred to Sanral, but Ngocha was left behind without being gazetted. And the Honorable MEC is still taking the matter. I understand it was discussed in the Minimac, and it was resolved that Sanral should attend to that because it's a strategic route for the province. On that strategic issue, there is a concern, though, from our principals, Commissioner, that the process of transferring roads to strategic roads to Sanral may handicap the province when it wants to toll, for example, or when it wants to generate revenue, because all strategic roads will have been taken by Sanral. The challenge that we have, Commissioner, is that if you want to be assisted by Sanral, the condition is only one, that will only assist if it's going to be ours at the end of the day. They can't assist you if it's going to go back to you. Hence, we are saying, instead of staying with backlogs that are more than 30 billion, if there's a way that one arm of the state can reduce the backlogs, why not give it to that? Because they've got financial muscle than us. The next one, it was the following roads. It was saying records pertaining to road maintenance and repair activities conducted in the past 5 years, leading to the current year, including information about the locations, associated costs, and the outcomes achieved. We've listed roads to St. Barnabas to Hlulega Phase 1. It was upgraded at 215 million, done and completed. Upgrading of R61 Makusheni to Mzamba, 20 kilometers at 637 million, it was done and completed. The other one, Mzamba, it's basically from Makusheni to Mzamba via Pizana. It was phased because we could not do it at one go, as you would see that we are mentioning one road at different intervals. It's because it was phased. We also did a road that goes to the home of former ANC President Tatu Oliver Tambo at 265 million. We also did CP2 Hospital first phase, and we are about to do second phase now and complete the road that goes to CP2 Hospital in Tabankulu. We've also done a road that passes through Willowvale town, which we called Willowvale Dwesa, phase 1. We did it and completed. We also did phase 2, 15 kilometers at 343 million. We've done it and completed. We're in the process of doing the third phase now, because we would want, it is part of what we called Meander, Wild Coast Meander Road. Information regarding contracts and tenders awarded for roads construction maintenance. It's listed there. Below are some of the key projects that the department has awarded in the recent past. I don't know, Chair, if you would want me to read them, but they are stated there that we've got about 36, for all 6 districts. We appointed the panel of service provider to provide a plan hire, which is helping us a great deal. Maybe if I could just talk about this plan hire. The PRMG, that grant that we get, do not allow us to procure a plant, yellow fleet. but they do allow you to hire. So hence we decided to have a contract for hiring that plant in order to attend. And it's the one that is helping us to overachieve on regraveling. We also have various contractors for surfacing of our roads on our database. We call them framework contractors, and so on and so on. We've spoken to some of the ones that I've already spoken to, like the Ibika Tumaze Patafalo Fefe Hospital. And it's still continuing professional services that are helping us, paving, and these are projects that have just been recently completed in terms of designs by our department. A budget allocation on 9.4, on an annual basis, we're getting 2.5 billion. Part of it is the grant, the PRMG that I've made reference to. Part of it is the equitable share that goes towards construction or upgrades. I've divided it according to sub-programs within the transport infrastructure, but in total. But what goes to construction is about 987 million, and maintenance is about 1.2 billion in the year under 2023. And the reason why it looks high this time around is because of the 190 that we got as a result of the Willie Sizwe program. And then the responses, maybe I will see the next slide, 67, is on that one. I think it's showing years that I don't know which first year. Can't even see it myself. It was 1.8 billion. It went on to 2.4 billion, and then remained at about 2.4 billion. I think I would be misleading if I can see clearly. I can't see clearly there. Okay, the next page, 2021 financial. Oh, I see. This is 2022 and 2023 financial year. It shows the budget. It shows that was allocated. It also shows the expenditure. But on 2022-23, it says the expenditure for the amount that we're given was at 99.9%. So we almost spent all our allocation. And then on 2021-2022 financial year, we spent almost 100%, we were more by 1%. On 2020 to 2021, we spent 90. The next page on the screen is 99.9%. And 2019-2020, we spent 97.5%. The bottom line is that much as we seem not to be making the dent on the ground, but at least we are not returning funds unused to the province, to the national fiscus. Details about departmental's quality control processes. We've tried to explain in detail responses. Department uses both internal and outsourced resources to perform the quality control measures for construction and maintenance of its project. Transport infrastructure largely deals with roads projects whose implementation is regulated by CIDB, Construction Industry Board, South African Institute of Civil Engineers, Engineering Council of South Africa. Therefore, all stipulated regulations which are applicable to construction and maintenance of roads are complied with. In addition, all roads acts Eastern Cape in South Africa as amended. We've got Eastern Cape Roads Act and other pieces of it govern all other aspects, e.g. compliance standards and regulations. Further, there's a number of manuals deliberately developed to guide and enhance adherence to construction and maintenance of standard, ETRH and TMH. The department also, on major capital construction projects, have full-time material testing laboratories on site for quality control. In summary, it simply says you cannot, with a mere look, decide if the road is according to standard or not. It must be tested as per the applicable legislation. The department's long-term plans, strategies for the development and enhancement of road infrastructure encompass projected timelines, budget allocation, and how these funds are allocated across different regions, specifically identified roads. I think we do have Annex Chaka B5. I'm not sure whether it has been shared with the commissioners. It just lists all the projects that are done together. Yeah. I don't think it's here, but it talks to the projects that we have already mentioned. With regard to internal and external audit reports related to road infrastructure, management and expenditure, we have provided this management report, which is detailed. We felt like if we summarize it, we may miss important things that the commissioners would want to determine. That's it. I think that's it. And there's this one, 78. Yes, slide number 78. Eastern Cape Development enters into, I think the question on 9.8 was insight into the department's collaborations and partnership with local municipalities and other relevant stakeholders aimed at addressing the challenges related to road infrastructure management. So we have detailed the partnership that we have. We do have partnership with Sandral on 2 Breibach, the one that goes to Queenstown, and we've got partnership with another one that goes to Port Alfred. Like we said, they've got muscle, so if we join them, we get economies of scale if we work together with them. We've got service level agreement with the Sahrc for assisting them in the construction of M Street and taxi route in former Grahamstown, Makana Town. We also have a service level agreement with Enoch Mkijima for a number of roads. The Tsolwana Nature Reserve. We also assist them on the road that goes to their industrial center called Fikile Kwadana. We also have service level agreement with Great Kai Municipality on a road that goes to Haka Haka, a very tourist attraction coast. We also have one with Emalahleni on a road that goes towards a mine. We also have a service level agreement with Raymond Mhlaba for the construction of a road which has been completed now. That goes to a historical institution called Hilltown. We also, without exhausting them, also have plan that we have made available to municipalities to assist them with municipalities like Malahleni, Ofimvaba, Enoch Mkijima, Ala. Those are some of the municipalities that we are assisting with our limited plan. The last one, department, it's 9.9. Any road projects that have experienced delays or cost overruns along with explanation for these occurrences. We have a lot recently as a result of the contractors, but let me just read. The department is currently experiencing a challenge of service providers who are either not completing projects on scheduled time or having cost variation. This is an issue that is related to the quality of service providers we are appointing, and at worst, it leads to a termination of the projects or contracts. Department is trying its level best to provide assistance to all awarded service providers, but this has not yielded any positive results. Department continues to enhance its project management team, and the matter has been reported to Provincial Treasurer. We just want to conclude, Commissioner, with the following recommendation. Primary activities should be aimed at ensuring safety, accessibility, and trafficability at all times. The point here is that much as we are limited when it comes to a budget constraint, but we must just make sure that communities are at all level, at all time, able to access their areas. Even if you are not doing a proper road, but you must just make sure that there is access. Hence the detail I was providing about intervention that we've made to the roads that have been sent to commission. Improve focus on bridge maintenance and major structures. Introduction of holding maintenance intervention on high traffic roads while funding remains a challenge. New capital upgrade projects should be limited to excessively high traffic roads, those that are not sustainable to maintain as gravel roads. Bottom line, if we continue providing new asset, which we find it very difficult to maintain, it's not right. We should rather maintain what we have and do very little of new ones, even though communities would want nothing else but surface roads. Strategic roads to be considered for seeding to Sahrc, if possible, to fund them while with Eastern Cape Department of Transport. That's the point I was saying, Commissioner, that would have wanted Sahrc to assist with our roads while they are still belonging to the province, but their policy do not allow that. If they were to come in, they must just take that route into the national strategic network. We are also appealing to policymakers to assist in mobilizing for more funding from the provincial and national budgets. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Acting DDG. I must commend you for a well-presented document. It was long, but it was also quite informative, which allowed us to follow every page and every word. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Carter to start us off, and thereafter Dr. Fobosi will follow.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, MEC and team, for the presentation. I am not sure whether you have had opportunity to join in the proceedings or listen to the proceedings throughout the week. All right. And seeing that this is our last session, I also just want to put to you then that there have been key issues that were raised in respect of the road infrastructure on the province. And I'm going to limit myself to 3 examples. Number 1 would be access to healthcare services, where the budget of the Department of Health has increased to an extent that they are paying billions out in respect of medico-legal claims because they cannot get to the patients quick enough. That's one scenario. Number 2, scholar transport. Children who are physically not able to get to school, children who are made to walk back roads because the scholar transport drops them off at a space that is not safe, and children who don't have scholar transport, because we've noted that the budget for scholar transport has decreased with quite a lot, which means these children, and what we've heard is that they would only be sent to school a little bit later, so the entry age would be around 10 years old. So that child would have missed out on years because there's no scholar transport. Then we've heard from businesses who says that they can physically not get their products out because they can't use the roads. That includes the tourism industry as well, and even your sister department who was here to say that our economic development is stifled because we cannot use the roads to attract tourists. We cannot use the roads to attract investment. The Xhosa, I think, example is the colleague came to say that the Eastern Cape is a gold mine. But investors don't want to come here because they will physically not be able to get their products out, their produce. Then that is perhaps just the context I wanted to to sketch. My first question is your presentation, and what we've been reminded of throughout this process is there's a very clear line between provincial responsibility and local municipalities. And can I confirm, maybe just by the nod of a head even, so that would allow my next question to proceed, that the budget that you've indicated that is required for routine and periodic maintenance, 5.27 billion per annum, is only for the provincial roads. So then we've not even touched on the 38,000, or 38%, is that correct? 44 is with province, 38 with local municipality. Then we've not even spoken about those. Is that correct? Okay. So clearly we are sitting with a bit of an issue here. And your sister departments have echoed what you have said, and it becomes very clear from the testimonies from communities as well who've said they've never seen development in 30 years. They've never seen a road in their small community being paved in 30 years. Because there's a backlog. You did not start from zero with the rest of the provinces. You started from minus 30, 40, 50. And now we're trying to play catch up. And the numbers that you are providing here is not even the local municipalities. So thank you for being honest in reflecting that there's simply no way that we are catching up quick enough. And then I want to take you to your slide indicating that the biggest portion of the funds that you are receiving is going to maintenance. So the new infrastructure projects that we saw, it's not being prioritized. So we are basically just maintaining the status quo. And the status quo is 30 years behind. Okay. Thank you. That's valuable for us to understand from where we are moving. That's just my contextual position. Now, I've got two specific questions, and that came from our participants here. RAMs, let's say rural RAMs. What we've been told is that the districts were provided with funding to get a service provider so that they can get all of this data. Okay. But what we've also tried to determine is that the local municipalities are still the decision makers on whether they want to apply what the data presents or proposes. Is that the case? And that's what I want you to answer first. So we have pushed in capital to districts. They've been the middlemen, gotten service providers, and now we've got data, but the local municipalities perhaps still don't need to follow what the data suggests. That's my first question to answer. Two, then Section 4 of the Eastern Cape Roads Act suggests that there needs to be guidelines in emergencies. Now, one of the participants here, I think it was Agri-EC, indicated that their farmers are also not able to get their produce out. But they've tried, I think, in court cases since 2016, to get to an agreement with the department to say, can you at least just have guidelines in place for Section 4, which allows for emergency situations and perhaps even for a splitting of costs when that party then undertakes the building or the maintenance or the construction of a road for them to get through an emergency. So I'd like to have your comment on that litigation and the guidelines. How far are we with the guidelines that comes from Section 4? And scholar transport. I've not heard enough about scholar transport and what the process is here, because we've even heard from the AG that there has been findings very specifically on scholar transport. And what is the issues with scholar transport? Education was here to say, we can only do as much. And when there's the splitting authority, the splitting mandate, it becomes quite difficult to account for why kids are not attending schools, why there's such a high dropout rate, when in actual fact sometimes they are not transported to school on time. Then my last request for comment is the repairs. We have been told that and our report will outline all of the details, but what we've been told is that the infrastructure is of such a nature, provincial and local municipality, that the cars are damaged, obviously, at a higher rate. So maintenance to vehicles needs to be done at a more frequent rate as well, which increases everyone's budget. Now, what the Department of Health indicated is that their EMS vehicles are sent to your depots or to your repairs. I might not have the right wording, but that they are not, for instance, prioritized, that they will be standing in a line with all the other government vehicles that need reparations. And that would make for them not being able to reach emergency situations. So the EMS vehicle will be behind an administration vehicle that also needs repairs. And it's a first-come, first-served basis, apparently. I'd like your comments on that as well. So let me stop there, Commissioner. I know it's the last presentation. I know it's a lot, it's a lot that I'm putting to you. But it is very important for us, if the Commissioner is going to come to findings and recommendations, that we do understand your position, your struggles, your recommendations, and also the context. Thank you so much.
Let's offer you that opportunity to maybe address these questions so that they don't get lost amongst all of our questions. And thereafter, we'll come to Dr. Fobosi. Over to you, MEC.
Okay, maybe let me first give to the team before I say my say on these issues. Maybe that's
okay. And MEC, I've noticed your voice is softer than the acting DDG's. So I'm going to ask that when you speak, you just either elevate the volume or bring the microphone closer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first one is the complaints from medical practitioners. If you look at the projects that we have prioritized, you will notice, Commissioner, that most of them are going to the healthcare facilities. I'll just mention the ones that are currently running. We are constructing a road, surfacing a road that goes to Mlamli, precisely because of the issues, the points that you have raised. We are about to award, if it's not awarded by Treasurer already, a road that goes to Siphethu Hospital in Tabankulu. We are also doing a road that goes to Zitulele Hospital in KSD, from Coffee Bay to Zitulele Hospital. We've just completed a road that goes to Madwaleni Hospital. We are currently constructing a road that goes to Anzibe Hospital. And I've also stated that one of the roads that were listed in the questions, Tafalofefe, Pathway to Tafalofefe, going to the hospital, we have designed that road to be upgraded. However, the issue of the funds will always be a constraint, which would, hence we tried to our level best to explain our situation. So it is true that the department is biased toward the healthcare centers to address that. Like I said when I was, an honest statement that says the Department of Transport try all its means to ensure that there is always access. I don't remember getting a report that says there is a particular school that is permanently being unable to be accessed, because our roving teams, we always go and attend as an emergency if that situation happens. But there will be cases where it is raining heavily and something happens. And in those cases, there could be cases where the schools are not accessed by the scholar transport. But we would have wanted to do more, but unfortunately we could only do so much. The budget for scholar transport, I'm sure the acting HOD will talk to that, and the MEC. Thank you very much. And it is true that we've got a court case with the Agri-SA around the issue of access to the market. And that case, I think it's still going. There was a decision that on an annual basis we must make available 15 million that goes towards them. And we have been consistently making that 15 million available. That 50 million is not enough. So that's why they are continuing complaining. And it is true from economic point of view that they should be prioritized because they are taking produce to the markets. But when we have these limited funds, we need to balance that with other communities as well, because they are not the only transport stakeholders. And the law does not allow us to give taxpayers money to individuals without following Section 217 of the Constitution. That's where there's a problem, because they say, we can still do this road ourselves, give us money, instead of them participating in the procurement process. So that's the challenge that we would want. If there was a way of saying that 15 million must just be given to them, use it the way they want, we would definitely do that. But unfortunately, we are unable to do. You spoke about roads that goes to markets, tourist areas like Ngoga. Hence, I said the issue of Ngoga we've escalated to the national department for takeover, because as a province, we feel that we can benefit a lot out of that scheme. Roads that goes to tourist centers, we are constructing a road called Wild Coast Meander. And the main purpose of that project, it's a long road starting from Keiemouth near East London up to Port St. John's. That road is too long. We are implementing it piece by piece, Commissioner, because it requires 6 billion if you were to do it one go, and we don't have that kind of money. So we've done a lot. We've done Kologa to Endane. So at least Kologa now can be accessed by the tourists, which was problematic before. We've done a road, Coffee Bay, Hole in the Wall, Zitulelo Hospital, which is also a tourist route. We've done Hluleka Nature Reserve, which is also a road, and we'll be doing the last phase now. We are doing and about to complete Tsolwana Nature Reserve in Krisani. All these things are meant, but you can only do so much, commissioners. We would want to do as much, but we can only do so much. But I want to point out that there are things, strides that the department is doing. The road asset management system, you are correct, Doc. The funds, the Department of Transport made funds available for this data, similar to the one I was quoting on, which must be used to inform its decision and priorities. But like in our case, ideally would have followed it as it is. But if you've got backlogs or pronouncements that were made in 2007 that have not been pronounced, you will not follow it to the latter. You will always make deviations in the process. But I'm not going to be talking on behalf of municipalities, but they do. We gave them funds for them to develop their own rural road asset management system, which is a very important data for decision making. Guidelines on emergencies. On emergencies, or what we have, we are using the provincial disaster management policy on emergencies, like the disasters that have just happened. So we don't have guidelines as yet as a department, I can confess, and it's a matter that we'll have to look at that. But currently we are using the policy that the province has on issues of emergencies and disasters. The reason why we spoke less about scholar transport, which I'm sure the Honorable MC will be talking to, was the focus was on the state of roads. Otherwise, we can always say something about scholar transport. I'm not sure about these damages, Doc, because if your car hit a pothole, there's a procedure that you have to follow in order for you to be paid for that damage, and you are not expected to go and chew somewhere else. I think the mixes with the, I don't know, Honorable Missy, with the GFMS, I couldn't understand that particular question. So can I just stop there for now and hand over? Shall I allow HOD first?
Thank you, Doc and commissioners. With regard to the scholar transport, we've got different mandates. Education is to provide the quality education. On our side, we are referring the kids, those that are deserving, because we've got a policy to deal with that. Then Treasury is allocating budget based on the number or the baseline that they have, not on the actual number of the kids that are to be ferried. So the database keep on changing based on the schools. The kid maybe sometimes is leaving the school, but it keep on. But the money is not aligned to the number of kids. Hence, the shortage of the budget is experienced when we are implementing and paying the taxi operators. So the issue that the kids will come late, we've got also the EPWP officials that are also monitoring whether the taxi operators are delivering the kids into school. So, and also the principal is the one that also satisfied that the work is performed before we pay. So we are always relying on the principals also to ensure that the payment is based on the value that is created on the ground. It is our wish in terms, if we had funds, to ensure that we prioritize the access to hospitals, to schools, to tourism. But with the limited funding, there's a little that we do. But however, if we can apply the joint planning and implementation, and also within ourselves as stakeholders, that is the districts, the national, and also the municipalities, we can really make it a point that the resources that we have, we are putting into a pot to ensure that at least whatever that we are providing, at least it has got an impact, because we've got one system that is cut across the implementation of the infrastructure, the infrastructure delivery management system that is binding us to plan before we implement, so that at least projects are completed on time within cost and budget. But there are those constraints that were not yet there, but the systems are in place. But the willingness is, the district development model has been adopted and pronounced, but at the time there were no regulations that were forcing us, but there are draft regulations that have been issued. So there will be that, there's MOUs that were to sign between the partners, so that at least there's that common understanding of that we're servicing one client, which is the community. But at the time, we need also to see that they are getting the service on time. I think other questions, yes, delivered to acting DDG.
Maybe before you hand over to the MEC, we heard this week that you require the list or the numbers of learners by the end of the calendar year. I think it's around October, November, you will confirm. Now the concern being raised is that those numbers can't be correct, which is why HOD, you are finding this situation, you are reporting that you are often finding that the numbers are incorrect of the learners. Because by the time, if you're getting the numbers in October, November, it's the end of the year. By the time January starts, those learners, those numbers you had in October, November are not the same numbers you have in January. Some of them have graduated high school. Some of them have dropped out. The dropout rate in South Africa is very high the numbers of learners who enter grade 1 versus the numbers who leave grade 12 is very, very high. So how do we reconcile this practice of requiring learner numbers at the end of the calendar year when we know from experience that come January, that number is not going to be accurate? Now you have allocated learner transport on the basis of the numbers you received at the end of the year, but that number has changed.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Is the voice fine now? Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks for the questions. And I think if I may just build on the point on scholar transport points raised by the HOD, the reality of a budget for shortfall. When we took over the scholar transport, the budget 2015-2016 was about 400 million, and the learners transported were about 66,000. Forward to today, this financial year, about 125,000. The budget is 740 million. So which means the learners have doubled. The budget has not doubled. The increase has been about 20% or so. Even when we're transporting about 66,000 in 2015-2016, there are about 30,000 learners who could not be transported but in need. But due to budget, they could not be taken on board. So we still have sitting with that reality, the underfunding. The other thing is that we are the first one to admit of the inefficiencies on the system, the fact that it is manual, and the fact that it is prone to corruption, both by scholar transport operators and by some internal staff who have been alleged to have done wrong things. That is why now we have bought a system, an automated system, so that we ensure that it's no longer manual to avert that. Having done the investigation, which has been able to pinpoint operators that were benefiting unduly into the system, we are beginning a process to terminate those, and some we have terminated already. We have charged officials that are alleged to have done wrong in terms of inflating invoices and all those kind of issues. We're acting on that. But that which has been quantified by the investigation goes to about 15 million or a little bit above. But the shortfall of the budget as we speak now goes as far as about 300 million in terms of shortfall. We have run out of money already for scholar transport because we're starting, from, is it deficit? Yeah, in as far as this is concerned. We are engaging with Treasury. In the last financial year, they gave us what they call budget facility of 120 million so that we can complete the last financial year. And we could not pay that, the 120 million from this current budget. Now we're short, we're still discussing with them how we're going to pay scholar transport, transport learners, up until the end of the financial year. That's the discussion which is underway. I'm lifting that those kind of issues which are important because they also lift a policy gap in my own view. I had an interaction with DDG Mhlomi from Treasury, engaging around these issues, and he's agreeing about this shortfall. And we have demonstrated that we're doing something about wrong things that have been found into the system. We're acting on them. And, but there is a reality of budget shortfall. But my discussion with him have also lifted this policy issue that in other provinces, scholar transport remains with the Department of Education. As a result, some provinces, they do benefit with the annual increases of the budget of scholar transport. To us, it remains, with minimal increases. Because before you feed kids through a feeding scheme at school, they must arrive, and therefore they must be transported. In our own case in the province, we said we want education to focus on its core mandate, and therefore transport must take the transporting of learners. As a result, it impacted positively. But there is this other side of it now, where it impacts negatively on how then we do this. And the whole issue of access, the right to education, by learners, it's impinging negatively. It's an issue that, we're hoping that through this process, the issue of the budget shortfall, the fact that there are still learners that still walk to school because there is no money, impacting negatively on their right to education. We hope that just through this process, that can be highlighted. Because sometimes it becomes so difficult when, for instance, we're transporting 125,000. Now, we're expected to transport now 103 because of the budget cuts. And they approached me, HOD approaches me and the CFO to say, whilst the learners were writing 125,000, but the new database, so the 125 was for the last academic year. So we just completed to align information now with education. The new database is 103. Now you must offload from the system 20,000. And the learners are writing. And they say, now these kids, MEC, are not provided for. And education says that they have consulted with parents and schools. You, transport, you must offload the 20,000 so that you transport 103. And I'm saying to MEC Mvoko and the Premier, how do you say at a pickup point to the learners, you must take the bus to school, you must walk, And how do you do that discrimination? Bayo unakwela wenahamba ngenyawo. Ubakhetha njani abantwana xa ufika phaya bus stop beyothathwa phaya? And how do you do that in the middle of exams and say other kids must walk? So we're continuing now irregularly transporting those kids, because it's just so difficult. Age is gonna come back to haunt us. But these are hard decisions that we've got to make under these conditions. That is scholar transport. On the issue of medical legal claims, it's the first time for me that this relates to our roads infrastructure. I had served in the Portfolio Committee of Education, from the side of legislature. I've been interacting with the matter. The main reason, for the medical legal claims escalating, impacting negatively on the Department of Health, is the whole issue of collusion between some officials and some in the legal fraternity and some in hospitals, stealing of files, wrong procedures being done to patients and so on. And I've not heard a case where a civil claim is related to a road, that a person maybe died, couldn't arrive because, first time I hear it, but I know it's a reality that we have challenges of roads, but our infrastructure is not the reasons for the escalating medical legal claims. At least I can argue that point. It has to do with wrong procedures done and all those kind of issues, collusions, between the legal some in the legal fraternity and so on. It's an issue maybe the Commission can make a follow-up on, and maybe those who have submitted, they must submit evidence in that regard and support. At least from our side, we can support that, the reason for escalating medical legal claims are these, and at least support those. I just wanted to make that comment and also say that on the issue, the issue of medical legal claims, I've spoken to that issue. The issue of vehicles. From what I know, because the first thing when I was appointed in the portfolio was to visit our government garages, so that I have a first-hand experience in terms of their challenges and all that. Just here in East London, I went there. There is a pool of ambulances, which is the point I raised, fortunately, in the portfolio committee yesterday, only yesterday, to say we always prioritize health, in terms of their own vehicles, such that we've got a pool of ambulances that are at the government garage, so that when they bring in an ambulance with a problem, we give them from the pool, so that they don't have to wait. So that when I visited the government garage, I asked, why must we have about 10 to 15 ambulances in a pool when we've got a shortage of ambulances? I thought 15 ambulances were too many to keep in a pool, and they looked quite brand new at the time. It was only last year when I went there. So I'm saying, from as far as the Department of Health is concerned, from what I know, they are receiving our priority. There might be cases, they can then put those forward. I can make a follow-up. We can investigate those. But it's agreed that they do require that we don't treat them, at least the EMS vehicles, they need to be, I think the issue of, roads infrastructure as an enabler for economic development, that is agreed. But I think we're facing this challenge that relates, to the budget and all that, which we've spoken to. Those are the comments that I thought. Let me add on the responses. Can I stop there, Chair?
Yes, let's give Dr. Carter that follow-up.
Thank you, MEC. Maybe just clarity from my side is it is not the reason, it is a contributing reason. So health would have a turnaround time for EMS vehicles to reach communities. And it would be, in my view, obvious that one would be quicker on a road which you can travel 80 kilometers an hour on than one you can barely access. So that, for me, I hope that creates a context, because it's certainly not, we don't need to go much deeper into that to know a turnaround time would be much quicker on a paved road than it would be in a road that is inaccessible.
Yeah, no, that is
you can
agreed,
concede on that.
I can concede on that.
Thank you.
But what I don't agree with, that it is the main reason.
No, that is not what we're saying. It's contributing.
The medical
it
legal.
may be contributing.
Yeah, it's
That's
quite
right. It's
Yeah,
something that one must consider. All right, so then just the last two comments is, I know you've indicated that there is movement towards access to very basic services, and then I think you mentioned Mlamli, and that project was stalled for how long? For 4 years. It was put to us in 2020, the project, the Mlamli project.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So for 4 years, we are almost in year 4 now. All right.
If I may, on that one, the project should have been completed in, I think, April this current financial year, but the contractor left the site.
But you understand my point.
Yes,
You're
yes.
raising this as one of your success stories on our issue in terms of access to
Yes.
health. But the
Yeah.
project is stalled.
Not
It is
now.
not. It is not completed.
It's not completed,
I
certainly,
think
but the
thank you.
contractor has gone.
That's all from my side on that. And then just the last one. I do think it's a little bit disingenuous to suggest that potholes is the only wear and tear that a vehicle would obtain. Do you agree with me, sir? When we have major generals come to us to say that their police vehicles require maintenance because they have to drive on very difficult roads as opposed to paved roads. Do you agree with me that potholes would not be the only maintenance issue?
Certainly not.
Thank you.
Can I just say something on the school enrollment issue raised?
Yes.
Just on that one, we raised this point with the Department of Education as to when do we receive the database of learners to be transported in financial year. Like, for instance, we got this 103 in April. The final one maybe in May. It makes it difficult for the department to plan when you get a database of learners in May, already in the middle, of the school year, when the school year has commenced already, you only get a database. And yet, had you received the database, a year before for the next academic year, it makes easier. Hence the issue about October, November, receiving a database for next year. I clearly understand the point you're raising, Commissioner, but the point we're raising with them, we're saying, how if you consider to adopt the Gauteng, approach, where they would use an electronic, applications to encourage parents to apply that my child is going to be there this year, next year, and so on. Even if, because of the rurality of our province, even if you're not going to get the totality of the kids, at least you can get a number that you can work on to prepare for the next academic year, instead of getting already when you're there. And they said to them, it can't work. That's what, it can only be in February when, But I still believe that it's something worth considering, because you'll always run into this problem if you are unable to plan, on time, because that database is a basis for our information, our planning, because they identify the need that we've got these 10 kids to be transported, and then we plan on that. If we get the need, in April, it's quite a difficult one. So that's an issue which we must sort out between ourselves.
Yes. What is the deadline that you set for them?
We said if, they would give us October, November, maybe invite parents by August to say they must do the application. We're saying that as a matter of an example, that in Gauteng, they start already by August to say people must do an applications online and all that. And and we did appreciate that it might not be 100%, it might not give you 100% picture given issues of connectivity in the province, but at least you can cover maybe the greater part of the province, have an idea, and by that time then they can then give us what they have.
But would it not assist both parties if that list or if that deadline is, for interest's sake, 2 weeks after the start of the school year? Because then they know their numbers. If maybe there's a late enrollment, it's by a week. But after 2 weeks, they already know their numbers. Asking them in November is counterproductive, because those numbers are certainly not going to be the same.
Not to be complete.
Yes, but after enrollment. So this is just a question for consideration, MEC, to say perhaps where you can meet in the middle could be then that's 2 weeks or so after enrollment.
Yeah, I think we can work on this.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
I think the HOD wants to say something.
The other part is the budget process. At the time when the numbers are concluded, the system is closing on the other side. Hence, we were saying, let us push at least to have numbers before the final envelope is concluded.
Yes.
So that is also another angle in terms of wanting the numbers earlier.
So that's the challenge.
Yes.
The annual planning cycle. When are the budgets due? Are they not due in January, February? They are not due before December.
The final numbers, we are submitting now the second budget adjustment.
Yes.
We submitted the first one.
The first one is when?
It was in August. Yes, August, July, August, the first one. Then the second one, we are now preparing to submit. But without those numbers that are fixed, so which means we'll always have the question of saying, is the budget buys for the correct number of the kid?
And because of the current context within which we are living, we can't make estimates per class, per school, to say a class must have 30 learners, and because it's got 10 classes per grade, therefore, you can't do that math, because in one class there's going to be 35 students, and in another there's going to be a difference.
can only be dependent on education, maybe, because they are the one who identify the need. That is
Yes.
why we're saying, even on the whole issue of rationalization of schools, we said that they must do it in consultation with transport. Because if in the middle of the financial year they decide to close one school for one reason or another, it means that there are kids that are going to be left stranded, and then there's going to be a demand for scholar transport, and that those kids were not part of the database. Now, people will be sent pillar to post, no, go to education, no, go to transport. And I end up saying to the officials, no, let's transport them. And they wouldn't say in some cases, no, we don't have budget MEC because they're not part of the database. They will take from another school and transport those kids, So those are some of the issues that require tighter coordination and communication between the two departments and better clarification, because we've got an MOU between the two departments. But I think that there are weaknesses in ensuring that each party, they carry their own specific roles, quite effectively and efficiently.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
What informs that this competence of learner transport should be vested with your department, whereas in other provinces, such as the KZN example you have made, the competence of learner transport is vested with education?
It's an issue that I'm saying this maybe it's a policy issue, which I said in my discussion with Didi Mhlomi, I saw it emerge. And I think that is something that as a province we must relook at, because at the time of making the decision, our performance in as far as the matric and all that were number last. And there was sort of determination to say the education department must focus to its core business. They must not look at transport, look at that, and look at that. And transport was taken away. Indeed, the results have improved, but the downside of it now is that there is this disjuncture now between, access to education and transport and budget, because I would want to believe that if the transport, scholar transport remained with education, it would have been catered far more better in as far as budget allocation compared to where we are now, because they'll be in control of all these, whether it's about the number of learners and all that, they will be in one pot, so to speak. Yeah.
MEC, just quickly, are you able to point us to the exact policy in question?
We developed from the National Scholar Transport Policy, we developed our own provincial policy, which makes us different than to other provinces that have stuck with the national transport policy. That's how I can maybe put it, unless you want to say something. Yeah. Which is the point I'm saying, perhaps there is a need for us to relook at it as a province.
No, thank you, MEC.
Drawing experience from other provinces.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, thank you very much, MEC. We will definitely also be considering that as part of our analysis. I'll hand over to Dr. Phobos.
Right, thank you, Commissioner. I think you've discussed a lot. Let me just seek clarity on a few issues and start with the scholar transport one, because that one is very close to my heart. Because it's important in terms of access for students to education. And I've mentioned, that it's one thing to have the right to education, and then it's another thing to actually have the ability to access that education. Because the students, providers are paid. I'm asking this because the AG just shared information about the overpayment of scholar transport providers. So if you can please just explain how the providers are then paid, given that finding from the Auditor General. Secondly, you also mentioned that the department made a commitment to upgrade 1,732 kilometers from gravel to surface standard since 2007, and only upgraded 22%. That is 373 to date. 16 years. 16 years, only 373. So then what comes to my mind, why that underperformance? Why have you only achieved that little in 16 years? Secondly, you mentioned that the total budget required for the backlog of 1358 kilometer is 24.4 billion for the pronounced projects, projected years of 25 years. Yet you are overpaying contractors. AG also revealed that you overpaid the contractor. And yet you need more money. You say you don't have more money. You don't have money to actually perform the required tasks. Because what has been revealed is about the 13.1 million that has been overpaid to your contractor, which is a lot of money. Right? Can you also please provide more information on the number of bridges to be maintained with the received special funding? Because you mentioned special funding that has been received. So how many bridges from that special funding are going to be maintained? And lastly, any plans to just share the plans that the department has to address poor gravel road conditions in two rural areas. So one being a deep rural area from Sangoma, so from Deni to Upper Tsitsan. So the deep rural area is very bad there. Very bad. I travel there when I go home. So it's very bad. So any plans, to address such conditions? Thank you. I'll stop there.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Fobosi, for those very important questions. MEC, just to add to this question about the 16 years it has taken of Dr. Fobosi, I have a few questions here, but I just want to make emphasis to this question. I did a little bit of calculations based on these numbers you have given. And I'd like you to just walk with us, acting DDG, on these numbers. Dr. Fobosi has correctly pointed to the fact that it has taken 16 years to construct this 373. Now, let's do the maths. That means that in 16 years you've been able to pave 23 kilometers per year. That is the rate at which you are going. Now, if you continue at this rate and you start at 1,732 kilometers, you are now left with 1,359. And if you are paving 23 kilometers per year, you are going to finish this 1,359 in 59 years. That is 2082. I don't know if any of us in this room are going to be alive. Let me see. If this is the kind of pace we are going at. So I thought I should just add that math in order to paint, to put color to the picture being drawn by this, of the reality of the pace you are going at. Over to you, MEC.
Thank you. The DDG will speak more on this, the pace. I'm smiling because this is the part which is depressing. And at times when he explained the backlogs, and he does that in a bigger meeting with the community, I would discourage him to do so, because it's quite depressing. And as leadership, you would want to come across and build confidence into as you go forward, whilst you appreciate the challenges. I'm saying we are deeply, deeply, aware of the implications of the pace, which is caused by the budget. But I think we'll speak to it. He likes to put this point as to how long it's going to take, which I'd find most cases demotivating, put it that way. Let us focus on what you have and do the best, rather than to say, with this pace it's going to take you this much. You might, yeah. DDJ?
Thank you so much, MEC. Thank you for the questions, Commissioner. If I may start with the questions from the dog. I'm sure HOT will talk to this overpayment issue. I would want you to talk to that one. The 16 years, indeed, I think I must just confess that it has been underperformance on our part. We are mostly delivering upgrades or surface through contractors. And the situation we find these days is that people that have entered into that space, not all of them are passionate about that. Most of them have gone to that space because they see quick cash. Hence, in our report, we did talk about the performance of the contractors, which is really worrying. And some of the things that result in this underperformance dog is the fact that while you are implementing this project, there are so many demands that you get from the communities. First, it will be demand for a compensation to some of the things that you will be using, the normal gravel road that you'll be using, which is not catered for, and it will find out that you are not delivering as planned. Secondly, the issue of SMMEs, the need to have 30% on major projects by SMMEs has created a lot of delays in our project, because it takes almost 3-4 months before the actual construction takes place, because they have their own interpretation. The 30%, like, it's something that should just be given to them without lifting a finger in terms of the advertisement process and the procurement processes. They wouldn't want it to happen that way. So we are always having a challenge around that, other than the financial things. And lately, there's construction mafia that has got into our space as well, where whoever gets appointed to do a road is expected to pay protection fee. And it's again an issue that becomes a discussion that delays the implementation of the project. The reality, Doc, is that if for whatever reason I had set aside 10 million to be spent in Mlamli, and we are delayed in Mlamli, we are unable to spend the 10 million on Mlamli. Part of that money we redirect to projects that will be able to deliver quicker than returning the funds. Like I said, that if you're looking at our network, the MEC doesn't like me to always make reference that the target is all about 600, 700 kilometers a year. And we've been overperforming on that, because whenever there is a delay in one of these projects that, Doc, you've just referred to, we then channel funds to where it will work and assist the communities. So we've got that. So I concede that it is underperformance, Commissioner, on that one. I can't defend it. And the next question, the overpayment, it's a subject for a discussion, Doc, and decision. Though AG has made a decision, but we agreed that let's appoint a specialist or independent surveyor to determine whether the statement by AG is correct or not. Our contracts are called measurable. You work, somebody comes and measure, and then you pay based on what has been measured. If indeed we realize that the consultant, which was the client representative, have overpaid, then we will recoup that money from the engineer. That's why we want that independent, without disputing that that is not true, but it must be investigated. Because AG simply looked at the bill of quantities, which is the estimate, and look at what has been paid, that you have not paid according to what was in the bill of quantities. And it is stated in the general conditions of the contract that a bill of quantities in a measurable contract is just an estimate. The final figures will be determined as built drawings. So that one is a matter that is being followed. So it's not concluded as yet, but it is material irregularity that we are working on. On the Welisizwe Bridges, Doc, the money that we got last year was about 307 million. It was meant for 19 bridges. Those bridges have not, because we received the money in December, Commissioner. So we could not be quick enough to conclude. So we are still working on the 19 bridges for the 307 million. And then the 190 million that we receive in this current financial year is meant for 17 bridges. All these projects are implemented through South African National Defence Force. The pace in which it is being implemented is worrying the political principle, is worrying us all, because the defence is not deploying as promised. So it's a challenge that we're experiencing. But in total, it's the 19 for last financial year and 17 for this current financial year. And yes, the plans to address the rural roads. I think there is a trip that the Honorable MEC has commissioned to Gauteng with regard to brick manufacturing. Was one of the view is that continuing with regraveling, it's counterproductive, even though it has got budget limitations as well. So the view was that if we could produce the bricks that would be used to construct paved roads in the rural areas where volume of traffic is not that high, so paving will be proper there. So if we can procure a machine, manufacture ourselves the bricks, then I think we can make a difference. But the issue of funding will still come, Doc. I think let me, I've considered on the underperformance. Thank you.
Thank you. The other part that I thought acting DDG will talk is that 90-10. We've got 90 gravel and only 10 that is surfaced based on the funding instruments that we're having. And that analysis was done in 2017. Now the new one is coming and the budget has not changed. Yes, let me agree on the inefficiencies that led to the contract, to the taxi operators being overpaid. The problem started during COVID, and the allocations that were done before were linked to the distance that was to be managed between the kids. And then when COVID comes in, there was that distance also that were to add additional allocations. But in that process, there were inefficiencies that were done by our officials, but the PSC report has been delivered to us, telling us the story that happens, and where the contractors, they were paid because there were 2 allocations. Then in the eyes of AG is the second payment for the same trip. So which means the context was not even addressed. But we need also to tell the commissioner, that the committee, that we are dealing with the officials and also with the contractors. We've quantified the numbers of those that were paid, maybe in the manner that there were collusion between even the principals, because sometimes they sign off saying that the kids were at school, yet there was nothing that aligning to the delivery. But in that context of saying, let us revisit the position of the scholar transport, it has also to be taking into account the issue that as transport we're procuring the taxi operators, but who confirms the work on the ground is the principal that says indeed the contractor delivered. So there's a dependence that we need to manage in that process. Thank you, Chair. Also the issue of the bridges. This time, the 4 bridges that are being implemented is the national department. So which means even the pace when you allocate a budget when the project is not ready in terms of the planning stages, the budget cannot be utilized, but we are saying we've got money. We need the bridges, but the money came in with where the province or even national allocated, not even saying that the projects were ready to be implemented. Hence, we are saying we are forcing the infrastructure delivery management system to say plan and be ready, and then implement. Thank you.
No, thank you. I see that. Okay, MEC, you want to add?
Just to add, first maybe to concede that the question about underperformance in 16 years, I think I completely misunderstood it. I just want to admit that. I just related with a different discussion that I used to have with him in terms of the budget and how long it will take us, to deal with the backlog. And yet it was exactly what the DDG was responding to. Just want to make that admission first. Then the other part, the issue of overpayments is an issue that I indicated, as HOD is indicating, that we are acting on this, including allegations of corruption. And on that one we are acting. My worry though, given the shortfall of about 3 million of the scholar transport budget, those allegations of which we are acting on them, they seems to, the reality seems to be underplayed, by, when people look at our own situation, whether by Treasury, whether by others. For me, it's as if we have got that 15 million or 13 million, this will be solved, and therefore you're not acting transport. And I'm saying the biggest problem, that is part of the problem, but the biggest problem is budget shortfall. So whether it's AG, sometimes you get this thing as if it's exaggerated, as if the bigger problem of scholar transport is those weaknesses. And for us, those are the problems, we're acting on them, but the bigger problem is budget shortfall. It's an issue that I just thought, let me raise. The issue has raised the issue that there is what they call a proof of delivery, where there are monitors at the level of the schools, and the school principal signs this, the proof of delivery note, which must be submitted to the district, and the district must submit to the province to look at the invoices and do the payment. A system which we admit that is manual, and it's only now that we're seeking we are introducing a computer system to ensure that it deals with inefficiencies. That's the point I want. The other one, in terms of our plans to deal with rural roads, what the DDG forgot to raise is deliberate efforts to recapitalize our own fleet, which is aging, and at the same time to build capacity at a local municipal level. We're procuring now about 36 pieces of yellow plant, which are not sufficient. Some of those will be deployed to certain municipalities in areas that are disaster prone, so that we have, through this we have capacity at that level, which would facilitate our response, in those areas, so that we work together with municipalities on both municipal and provincial roads through that service level agreement. That's the point that I wanted just to add. Thank you.
Right, thank you, MSC, and thank you, HOD and the DG. Well, just a quick follow-up, the last one, the very last one. You have just admitted to underperformance. Now, if you can please share with the Commission the plans under your administration to deal with the underperformance. What are the plans that you have to deal with underperformance in the department, right? To make sure that everything is done, as per plan, that you meet the targets that have been set. So what is the plan? I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. If I may start, even though this is not important, the projections, the 1,700 versus the 373, it was up to 2020, not up to now. But still, it would still be 13 years. It will still be underperformance. Can I also talk through you, explain that we may underperform on one aspect, which is upgrades. But if you look at regraveling, we have overperformed there. If you look at pothole patching, we have doubled the performance there. Hence, I was trying to say, Doc, when we realize that we will not be able to achieve this, instead of allowing the money to go back to IFISCA, yet you know that you've got backlogs on the other aspects, like the regravel road. So that's why we always channel there. But on top of that, we have established a project management office to assist in getting close to these underperforming contractors, so that we identify signs early enough. We act quickly without dragging. For example, Doc was making reference to Mlamli, the time it takes for the contract to go back. Ordinarily, it should have taken a month or two. We terminate if they don't go back. Even though they had a lot of reasons, like we want you to help. When government is being asked, please help us identify somebody who can help rescue us here. Secondly, can you please advance? Those were quite reasonable things which they were mentioning, which the department had to look at them. But the point is, we are incurring cost overruns as a result of lenience. So it's a matter that the protocol principal MEC says it must not be tolerated anymore. If someone is underperforming, irrespective of whether it's an SMME or what, we must just make decisions. Thank you.
Just in addition to the plan that we are to achieve our targets. Firstly, we've got a project list that is submitted to Treasury for a 3-year plan, but it emanates also from the 10-year plan that we are submitting. Then we are saying stage 1 and 2, that is in planning stages, you needed also to allocate at least minimal budget so that the project, you are to pay only professionals at that stage, but allocate more on construction. Then what we are doing as a department and as a province, there's a monthly engagement within the department first, that is the IYM, the in-year monitoring. There we are looking closely on ensuring that projects are monitored and ensure that at least they are within the targets that we have set. But however, within that, we needed also to introduce the site visits so that at least we are closer to the project and the project is managed by a person that is at a district level, the one that is close to the activity, but has also to sign off the work that has been performed. So we track that on a monthly basis, and the province, they've also established the technical committee that is led by DG, so that the departments can go and then present themselves and come with the recovery plans. So we are on that stage, and also we're reporting to EXCO on a monthly basis. But at the point that we are moving towards that, putting those tight controls. But at the same time, to say that the professionals that we've appointed, they must also be put on task, that they are our eyes and also monitor the projects that are on the ground. We cannot just pay them, and yet the project has not moved. So we will be closer to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to cover a few points, I think at the heart of what we're trying to do is to strengthen accountability mechanisms and ensure that there are consequences for wrongdoing, and that the department is professionalized and that discipline is handled irrespective of who is in front of you. Because I did note on my arrival that there were those issues in terms of selectivity, how that space is managed. The other one is to work on tolerance levels. What are these things that we can tolerate? That are those things that we cannot tolerate as a department. So we are working on that, which will result into all of us signing pledges around those. We have appointed a director for risk, which I insisted that director for risk must sit in all management meetings so that he can help us, with warning signs and inform our decisions. And a part of that is to be responsive to the reports by M&E, our monitoring and evaluation, and findings of the AG. In some of these, projects that have delayed, in some instances, reports were written by M&E as far back as in October in one instance to say we're likely to have a problem here. We failed to respond. Management failed to respond on those issues. So we're saying now it's quite important that we must tighten those, and we must, enhance our responsiveness toward M&E risk and all that, and that there must be consequences for wrongdoing. The other issue is in line with this service delivery model I was talking to, which is about strengthening our own capacity, but building also capacity at the level of municipalities and working with them to tackle the task. So those are the things that we're doing as an addition to what both DDG and HOD have said. Thank you.
No, thank you, MEC. We have come to almost the end of our engagement with you. But I don't want to miss this opportunity to point out that when you started acting DDG through yourself, MEC, you pointed to the history of the apartheid government, which ensured that some people deserved undeveloped state of living, while others deserved better. We must agree with you on that history. But at the same time, I think we must also agree that that history should not be used as an excuse for non-performance and non-development. I'm saying this while referring to slide 14. Slide 14 paints a different picture to the introduction you have made. Because slide 14 says that in 1996, you had less paved roads in a very poor state. You had less paved roads in a poor state. You had more roads in a fair, good, and very good state. By 2017, the situation had deteriorated. So this is contrary to us beginning our presentation by saying we are in the situation we are in because of a past of inequality. Because by 1996, that past was in the past tense. Yet, the graph is showing that the deterioration trend has been increasing. I just want to point that out, MEC, because if we are going to make a change, we have to face the reality of where we are. That's the first thing that I wanted to point out. It's not a question. It's just something that I thought I should point out. Then the second one, relates to slide 32. Here, MEC, I would just like to be given a sense of clarity. When we are talking about 500,000 per kilometer, and we say that this is how much we need to maintain a gravel road, maybe you can assist to say what are the cost factors? What do we pay for when we pave, when we maintain? Because we are not even, we are maintaining the gravel road, and we are saying 1 kilometer is 500,000. What goes into, what are the material factors that are being paid for when we are talking about this 500,000? And then lastly, from my side, MEC, is on slide 34. We heard from Sahrc earlier, and the regional manager of Sahrc had the benefit of, in his previous life, being an employee of one of these units, the in-house construction units. And he lamented to us that the department is or has done away with the units gradually. Because then it means it sucks out the capacity from internally, and it increases the reliance on service providers. I see here that the reasons we have given for the decline of the units is mainly budget allocation, key personnel, poor plant availability, and procurement issues. And maybe you can assist here, MEC, but do we not see it as counterproductive? The money that we spend for the service providers could easily be the same money that we are saying there are no resources to equip these units, because you are paying more for service providers because they are charging more than market rate. Instead of equipping an in-house unit where then you can be able to manage better, not only the resources but the personnel who is helping you with the construction, and effectively you stand yourself in the position of reducing the rate at which you are heading to pave the roads, which we have agreed is 84 years from here. So I thought maybe I should just put that to you, MEC, and hear your own reflections.
Thank you so much, Honorable MC. Thank you, Commissioner, for those clarifications. Can I, without being defensive, Commissioner, paint this scenario? Pre-1994, in a village, dog may attest, you will find out there is one vehicle or two that will be using that stretch of road. But go now, almost every household has a vehicle. Now the traffic that is on the road has increased significantly as a result of the economic empowerment that we are now enjoying as a result of the democracy. No wonder, because if I can go to gravel road, the major enemy of a gravel road is water. The second one is the vehicle. So the number of times the vehicles are using that, the layer of the gravel road on that is getting thinner and thinner faster than any other time. That is also happening on these roads that have lived long beyond their lifespan. Because a small pothole may develop, and when there is water on that pothole, each time a vehicle passes, then it's now making that pothole to be much more bigger. So there is that element, but I'm not trying to defend the situation of underperformance, but that's the reality that is happening. The volumes of roads have increased significantly. If you can go, I wish maybe the honorable can put it better. The situation in rural areas is different from urban. Because urban, they are closely, what is the word? The population, they are densely populated. And if you go to villages, they are scattered. And there are so many people that are staying and so many people that are using those. Go to the farm. You will find out that 10 kilometers, there is only one vehicle that goes to a farm. There is no development in between. Whereas in rural areas, each time you provide a route, all of them want to come as closer to that road as possible. So that's another scenario that I would wish the commissioner to look at when they are looking at the deterioration. And yet the funds have not been improving at all. Can I also sneak in, Commissioner, this one that I wish you could note it, the fact that we are entirely dependent on a grant that was meant for special purpose, a conditional grant that was meant to help the provinces maintain their roads. And then the provinces decided to do away with their own funds, but depend. Hence I was saying the condition of the PRMG says if you get $1 billion as a province, you must put a minimum of another $1 billion. And the reason why you go to KZN, Western Cape, and Gauteng is because they are not dependent on that grant. They are using other sources of revenue. So if it could be one of the findings, I'm appealing on that one. Then the cost per kilometer, what are the cost drivers? Ideally, Commissioner, would have wanted to use this $500,000 to purchase machinery so that we have our own machinery in-house instead of relying on outsiders. However, the grant does not permit us to procure, to capitalize, to buy machinery out of that. You can only use it to hire out. So that's the challenge now. We are now dependent on the outsiders. Hence the cost of the 500,000 per kilometer. And the cost drivers in the main are the vehicles, because you are renting the grader, you are renting the trucks, you are renting the excavator, you are renting the TLB, you are cutting the material, which we find it very difficult to get it now. It's very difficult to get material like before. You take it from afar. Those are cost pressures. And this is a market you can even check in other areas as well. What is the average cost per kilometer when you are... And one of our things that makes the Eastern Cape expensive is because of the topography. So we end up paying more than other provinces. But certainly, our cost will be very similar to KZN, for example. So if that comparison, but not be compared to it, Freystad was relatively flat. So as Gauteng. And the last, on the in-house commissioner, like I said, we can't procure. The Honorable MEC insisted that you just have to find money. You must buy these 36 items. We have not been replacing machinery for a very long time. We have not been replacing skilled personnel that were in the in-house, as Mr. Peterson has been stating. We are not replacing because on an annual basis, there is a cut on COE. It's only now on critical skills. So we almost have no one to assist us in-house, but we still have the outsourced construction with few machinery that at least are still making a difference. Thank you, Commissioner.
Just to add, Commissioner, is that the 18,000 per kilometer still stands, but there are additions like the machinery that we are to buy over and above. Not necessarily we are buying a kilometer for that 18, for 500 instead of 18. We've articulated in the implementation plan.
No, thank you, HOD. MEC, as you come in, and in the interest of time, I will ask you as you wrap up to also offer us quickly your closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Okay. No, thank you, Commissioner. Just maybe to touch on the issue that DDG made an example of, that with mud schools in the province, there was a special fund provided for the eradication of mud schools. But as it relates to roads, there was no special funds. We argued that a need existed and still exists for the provisioning of this. Whether you call it equalization fund or something, but where we started from negative. And the additional point is that whilst the increase of the volume of cars and all that are important points that the DDG is adding, but just the lack of funding, if a road needed to be maintained, you know, let's say in 2000, now you are in 2023, you did not maintain it in 2000. In 2023, you need to rehabilitate it. You couldn't maintain it because you don't have funds. So we're getting deeper into the hole if the funding is not coming forth. It's going to gradually be more expensive to deal with this. There must be a measure when we can arrest the decline by bringing additional resources. But I think the point is taken on the issue of challenges of weakening internal capacity owing to lack of funding and losing other skills and not replacing. But at the same time, you know, owing to these challenges that we're talking about, because our department is part of the same department that was facing state capture, if I may just be frank. And like all other government institutions, they had faced state capture, weakening internal, accountability mechanisms, but weakening internal capacity depending, on outside, and deliberately repurpose government to serve other interests. We have not escaped that. And that's why, I sort of led to ensure that we deliberate in ensuring that because government is contested by outside interests, including business interests, they are looking at government to make money. Whereas in a province like ourselves, which is a rural province, not an industrial province, and therefore you're talking jobs, you're talking business. Business must come only from government and from municipalities, and therefore it's highly contested. And therefore the issue of industrialization of the province is becoming key, the issue of professionalization is becoming key, the issue of building internal capacity is becoming key. So those are some of the issues that, that are important. Part of the weaknesses that we have gone through is we have campsites which was geared towards having these strategically located campsites so that we can respond on potholes, on others, having teams there. I visited one here in Fort Jackson. All districts now are busy working on the reports, assessing their campsites, making recommendations which campsites must be closed because they are not suitable for human rehabilitation and all that. Reports are coming because in visiting Fort Jackson, one campsite which is the biggest here, you find employees saying, no, we're more efficient MEC when diesel was not outsourced, when the material like tar was not outsourced. Now it takes time now to respond, and sometimes we just sit in a camp because we have run out of material. It must still be delivered by some service provider. Those are some of the things that have happened weakening the system. You know, I think that it's important for us to be upfront about those issues. We are attending to them now as we strengthen internal capacity, including these issues of ensuring that we deal with any allegations of fraud and corruption. We're doing this work that we're doing not as a favor, but as our constitutional responsibility, including to support municipalities. Both provincial and national government have a constitutional obligation to support municipalities, even on their own roads as we work with them. We're not doing them a favor. The Constitution expects us to do as such. And it is my appeal that the Commission helps us highlight the importance of ensuring that these rights that are entrenched in the Constitution are accessible to the majority by ensuring that the way government runs its business, allocates its budget, realizes the constitutional rights and aspirations of the people that are entrenched in the Constitution, and that it is not expensive to access education such that it becomes for only those who have money to access education, to access healthcare, and therefore that's why it's important that provinces like ourselves, if we're deliberately excluded and to be used as a reserve for cheap labor, there must be deliberate steps on the democratic government to ensure that we are empowered. The conditions are created for the province to be better. But at the same time, I take quite seriously the point you're raising, Commissioner, that some of the things, whilst they are the truth, they cannot be the reasons to justify any wrongdoing or any underperformance. We've got to perform, we've got to do what we need to do, and we've got to ensure that there are consequences for wrongdoing. And in many cases, as they say, that lack of consequences lead to more wrongdoing. And we've been experiencing more doing as a result of lack of consequences for wrongdoing. And we are determined to play our own role, and looking forward to the outcome of this hearing, which will use it as an instrument to lobby resources and make others understand our position, and which will use it also as an important tool for ourselves as to what lessons we'll draw from the feedback that we're going to be getting. We're looking forward to that feedback, which will use it to do things and improve them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MEC. We appreciate those words, and they are words of a true leader. To one, accept where there have been shortcomings in terms of underperformance, but to also take on with hope and inspiration the challenge ahead. We wish you all the best, and we wish your team all the best as well. Thank you very much for your time, and congratulations, Acting DDG, for a very well-presented presentation. Thank you very much. I was going to say I wish you all the best as you go back to office. Well, all travel. Yes, travel well, travel well. Thank you very much. In terms of the program, that is the last group that we are going to be engaging with today. However, we were due to end our inquiry today, but circumstances beyond our control have necessitated that this inquiry be extended and only be adjourned next week. The provincial manager, who is on my right, will determine when we reconvene, and therefore I will reserve my closing remarks for when the inquiry itself ends. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone who has participated this week. I'd like to thank the technical team, and I'd like to thank my fellow panelists for a very, very productive week this week. And we now stand down up until next week. Thank you very much. We are adjourned for the day. Thank you.